as the mayor pro tem, I'll be sitting in. The mayor is indisposed right now. I'd like to start our mayor and city council meeting of the city of San Bernardino, April 15th. It's 7:16, and I'd like to now direct the city attorney to give us our closed session report. Is there anything to report from closed session?
Yes.
Yes, can you please give us that report?
All right, yes, we discussed 3 items in closed session this evening. There is reportable action on the second item, which is a conference with legal counsel concerning anticipated litigation, initiation of litigation. The city council voted by a vote of 6-1, with Councilmember Ibarra voting no, to initiate litigation against Southern California Edison to recover underpaid utility user tax payments to the city. And that concludes my closed session report.
Mayor Pro Tem, you'll need to turn your mic back on.
Oh, do we have anyone assigned to do our invocation?
This is Mitch, and it was somebody who's been playing the video in the background. So just make sure that you're not showing the streaming, because that's why we're getting the double feed.
Okay. Is anyone doing? Oh, so we do have someone. You would like to begin? Oh, geez. Hello? I'm not hearing anyone. I think I just lost someone. I think I lost people. I think I'm out.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Oh, you can hear me? Can anyone else hear me?
Yes.
Are we? Do we have someone doing the invocation?
Ted, this is the mayor. I'm back on. So I'm back in session. If the city council, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. If the city council join me, please stand and let's go ahead and do the flag salute. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. All right, let's get right into our public comments. And Ms. Rocha, do you have any public comments to share?
Yes, so I provided the written comments to you via email a few moments ago, and then we have several recorded messages to go through tonight.
Okay, please proceed.
Hello, this is Douglas Meisner. I'm a Vermont resident for 40 years, calling in regards to the university project, the university building project would be in northwest Vermont. I have a couple of concerns. Number one is the lot size of these homes. 1,815 square feet seems like townhomes to me. I would not be in favor of townhomes or mobile home sites. That probably is not the best suited to our community. However, if these are just very ultra small homes, I suppose they're affordable. I would not be in favor of more apartments. Number two, also, one of my concerns is already pre-existing unfinished starts in the Vermont area, especially that like the tract on Belmont and Olive, just 3 blocks east of this proposed site. It's been almost 13 years since this tract was started, and it is an eyesore. And not only that, an environmental problem also, when the natural terrain was removed to start this housing start for these 13 lots. The natural terrain was removed and Class 2 base was put down. Unfortunately, when the wind blows, that Class 2 creates dust and sandblasting problems for everyone downwind. Before any new starts come up, I would like to see starts that are already finished and abandoned in the Vermont area. Please address this issue of these abandoned starts. Number 3, of my concern, of course, is probably what most citizens of Vermont are concerned about, is infrastructure. For 500 new homes, that's 1,000 new cars that are going to be inserted into the area. We already have an infrastructure problem. I work downtown San Bernardino on 2nd Street. It takes me longer to get to the freeway than it does the freeway to my work. The usual wait in the morning is about 20 minutes to get on the freeway. And it's not unusual in the evening for traffic to back up at even more dysfunctional northbound Palm Avenue exit, back up on the freeway and create hazards for us that are trying to get off the freeway to get home. I would like the infrastructure addressed before any new housing starts are up here. This has been a crumbling foundation of this neighborhood for probably 15 years. Please do not build anything else on top of a crumbling foundation until we shore up what's there. We need to address the Palm Avenue exit, the light situation between what belongs to Caltrans and what belongs to the city of San Bernardino, the synchronization of these lights, possible bridge. Thank you for your time. I do appreciate it.
Hi, my name is Todd Thompson at 6375 Angels Peak Drive in the Vermont Heights neighborhood. And I was just calling to talk about the options for our neighborhood improvements on the north side of the Little League fields. I prefer the watermark option, number 2, with the homes being built due to the fact that all homes are on this side of the freeway. And I think that would be a better way to keep it similar than to cause blockiness and cause unneeded trucks coming from neighborhoods where kids go to school. It's important to keep those neighborhoods with neighbors, not with unneeded trucks. Also, if we're going to do this, what are the plans for the on-ramps to make them better? They're already congested as is. And that would be a huge problem with trucks. Again, we're also coming down onto that on-ramp for cars to get onto the on-ramp to carry on to work and so forth. Thank you for listening. If you have any more things you'd like to ask me, my number is 951-217-89. Bye.
Karen Madrigal. I am not quite sure if you're walking around town with your eyes closed or what, but you are getting upset about them bringing homeless to our area. Nobody has to bring them. We already have them. They're all over the place. In front of storefronts that have closed, in the parks, walking the streets. So let's get going on roadway in and put some of them up and get rid of this COVID virus for good. We can't sit around and sleep. And I disagree with giving the mayor $50,000 to obtain a lawyer on things that he did wrong. Should you need to contact me, you may contact me at 909-883-6151.
Bill Rainbolt. Hi, I am calling to ask a question to the mayor. Are you in the city of San Bernardino not obeying the quarantine rules set by the state? The reason I ask that is because me and my wife were driving down Highland Avenue last week when we saw a bunch of people in cars parked in Fiscalini Field, the Pizza Hut parking lot, going to the old pool hall. I believe it's a shirt shop now across from Fiscalini Field. We did ask somebody what they were doing, and they said they were going to buy some sneakers, which the quarantine was not being abandoned by the city of San Bernardino. So when I called the PD to make my concern with this issue, they told me that the city of San Bernardino was not abiding by the quarantine. Also, the other question I have is, was there a raid on that facility not too long ago with the fact that whatever was happening is now taken care of. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Leticia Garcia. I'm calling to leave a message for the council meeting tonight, Wednesday, April 15th, regarding the $50,000 allotment for attorney fees for the mayor of the city, John Valdivia. I actually am asking the council to reject that request by the mayor, as he should be the one who is responsible for his own attorney fees in defending his own personal mistakes. As I have seen and read, many of the incidences that are in question regarding his various different things that he's done to damage himself in the city, partly in part, many of those have been done while he was not in representing the city, but rather he was representing himself to fundraise. So in that respect, he should raise his own money to defend his own stupidity. The council would be extremely irresponsible and fiscally irresponsible if we were to use this money as representation for John, since he does not deserve it. Also, it's not just $50,000. It's actually going to be a lot more than that once the case starts to get going. There will be more requests for more money. This is only one of the cases. He will have 3, 4, or 5 cases, I think it is, against him at the end of the day. So what are we going to do? Just flip the bill for all of it? The only way that I would agree that the city and the taxpayers should be responsible for this is if he agrees to resign immediately. If he tenders his resignation, then there can be no future lawsuits, because as it stands, the mayor and what he represents is nothing but retaliation, discrimination, all the things that can put us in litigation. If he agrees to resign tonight and his resignation is accepted and he steps down, then the city should defend itself by having this joke of a mayor in office. That is the only way that this council should approve any kind of funding for John's defense. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kalani Hunter from Rancho Cucamonga. Dear Councilman, I'm leaving this message to you because I've been looking at the news all day. I've been looking and emails and looking at what newspapers and things like that, and I'm seeing everything that Mayor Eric Garcetti is doing for his Los Angeles community. He has worked out everything. They have deferred writ. They have deferred or have given information about where they can go get tested. And he has done now unlimited testing in his area. Whether you have showing symptoms or not, there's food banks in his area. I don't hear any of that happening in San Bernardino County. It's almost like we've been wiped off the earth, and nothing's being affected. We're not being affected by the pandemic when we are. I just lost my grandfather to this evil virus. It took his life on Monday, but I hear nothing, no assistance to help my family go through this. No assistance to help my grandmother, who just lost her husband of 57 years. She's been with him since she was 18 years old. He was a wonderful man and a minister who cared and loved everybody. And I miss him deeply. But I hear nothing. There's no food banks in our area. If there are and they're giving out food, they're not letting anybody know. There's no testing sites. I don't see them. I don't see them happening. Kaiser is for Kaiser's member only. It's not for the outside. So I want to know what it is that you're doing for us. There's no deferment in our rent. A lot of us couldn't go to work or is out of work due to this virus. I want to know what you're going to do for your San Bernardino community, for your family, for those who voted for you guys to be in the areas that you are in or have the positions that you have. What are you going to do for your community? What are you going to offer us? Because we don't have jobs either. We are lost just like you. Our businesses are closed, and we're suffering, and we're going through all of this. But Mayor Garcetti, he's taking real good care of his Los Angeles, so he calls him. And you can tell the love that he has for them, but I don't see the love that you have for this community. So what are you going to do for San Bernardino County? Closed session, public comment. Treasurer Ortiz.
Just a moment.
Phil Rainbolt. Hi, I am calling to ask a question to the mayor.
Give me one moment while I find the correct one.
Open session comment. Treasurer Ortiz. Council, tonight you are voting on whether or not to give Valdivia a $50,000 retainer so that he can provide legal defense for himself against all of these claims of hostile work environment and sexual harassment. First of all, I really hope that you guys don't allow him to be a part of the conversation whatsoever, like when he was allowed to talk about his own employees. And definitely don't vote for this. Why would you give him taxpayer dollars when what he did was outside the scope of his employment in his office? Sexually harassing young women, being vile and homophobic is not within the duties of the mayor. And these are not claims that are unknown. This is an established behavior that each and every one of you have witnessed or have had happen to you. He chased Fred, Sandra Ibarra told him he was creating a hostile environment. He's gone after Jim, the city manager, in front of people. The scene was at places where he was drunk, watching how he was talking to you, all around him as his employees. So why would you vote for this? Unless you're still going to be tied to him and all of his wrongdoing. He is corrupt. He is ruining the city and taking us financially down the drain. With almost a $5 million deficit coming, this is what we're going to spend money on? This is what we're talking about and defending in our city when we have so much more to look at? And let's not mention that he's been a part of everything else. You're talking about the Vice property tonight, which we already know that he was working on a deal with Dave Malinowski for back last year. So how good is that deal to begin with? Do we know that there isn't corruption and fudging the numbers? Everything that's happening in our city is well documented. BB&K has been CC'd on everything that's going on between employees and the council and the mayor. So why are we here right now at this point with him still sitting in that chair? He needs to resign and go to jail. And the rest of you need to step up and start doing your job, which is taking care of the city of San Bernardino.
Hello, my name is Christopher Gonzalez. I am a business owner and proud resident of San Bernardino. And I'm calling in regard to not an item that's on the agenda, but something that we just recently caught wind of regarding to COVID-19 testing and facilitating shelters for infected essential workers as well as homeless sheltering. From what we understand, that there is a cooperative agreement being discussed with county and city officials in pursuing possibly having facilities here at the Carousel Mall parking structure or in this area, the downtown area, in which I would like to speak against that. Here in the downtown area, just specifically the Carousel Mall footprint is a 45-acre footprint. Surrounding areas, we've got multiple senior citizen living apartments, as well as still essential businesses operating. I would like to propose that we consider and take a look at possibly moving this effort to the San Bernardino International Airport. The reason being is that the San Bernardino Airport is sitting on over 1,300 acres. Now, that's a lot of space. That's actually a lot larger than the whole downtown area. Bringing the entire county, maybe not the entire, but bringing the counties infected to our downtown area will pose a threat and possible further infections of our citizens and business owners and those that are still running essentially. We would like to see that traffic, that sheltering effort, the testing possibly moved to the airport, because it's already designed where there's large open spaces. I'm sure there's probably some hangars. I understand that it's not controlled by the city nor the government nor the county, but again, with a cooperative agreement. And I understand the Mayor John Valdivia is the president of the San Bernardino International Airport Authority, as well as Ward 1 Councilman Theodore Sanchez is on that board as well. And so I'm sure with proper planning, this can be seriously considered to be facilitated at that location. Thank you again.
Carmel Rowe. I'm a resident of the city of San Bernardino. I live in the 5th Ward. And agenda item 2 directly affects me and my neighborhood. I am for the project. However, I would like to see that GFR would get the contract. They built the tract of houses that I live in. I worked with them when they were building, and they have a real good sense of community. And I believe that they would provide the best for the community, and they would work with the community the best out of the other 3 contractors or builders or whatever you would like to call them. So if you could please take that into consideration. My vote is for GFR Home Builders and their project. They do build very nice homes, and thanks. And, you know, I would also just like to say that I would like to see this city get back on track. I would like to have seen our mayor on TV and not just coming through your email. I'd like to have actually seen our mayor be the head of the city that he's been trying to be. And it really sucks that we can't see that, and we have no real leadership because of the allegations against our mayor, whether they be false or true. Only the mayor knows. Not that I'm defending him, because I have my own opinion on that matter. As far as this coronavirus crisis, the federal government is printing money, and it is giving it out to cities and counties. And I don't believe we have a single person competent in this city to go out and get that money that belongs to us, because the coronavirus could actually save the city of San Bernardino with all the money that the federal government is printing for states and cities and counties. So I would really like to know what we're going to do about getting some of that money. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Good evening, Council. My name is Kim Kanat, and I'm a longtime resident of our city. I've lived here in Vermont for over 30 years. I am commenting on agenda item number 2 in regards to the letter of interest for the Bice property. I'm very excited to hear there has been active conversation in regards to bringing new development. However, in reading through the proposals for the proposed development, I am concerned. I feel our city must start making decisions that are more aligned with being community-centric. Decisions that attract more residents rather than making us want to put up a for sale sign and run to Rancho Cucamonga like so many of my neighbors have already done. This property is a tremendous opportunity for our city to have a master planned community, much like you see in flourishing communities. However, we must have a concrete, strategic, and a well thought out vision. A vision that's developed with much stakeholder input and that focuses on truly creating economic growth that has value, is desired, and is lasting. And in considering the proposals for this project, what steps were taken to achieve those things? To even obtain knowledge of what we, the community, really desire to see? I don't believe there is any. I am all for development. I welcome it. I want it. I actually contact developers myself and encourage them to consider San Bernardino. I'm a YIMBY proudly who's invested in this community, and I truly desire to see it grow beyond what our neighboring cities like Rancho and Fontana, even Rialto, have become. I believe that San Bernardino can be better and outpace them all. However, that will only happen when we stop settling, when we unite and update our general plan to truly propel our city into something beyond wonderful. There's hope, but please don't let our hopes be quelled by continuing to allow projects that are not conducive to the stakeholders' desires and our needs. Let's first come together, go to the drawing board, and map out a design with community, growth, and sustainability in mind. We don't want to let these opportunities pass us by. We want developers to know that we are open for business and that we're a city ready for growth. However, we also have to have standards, and we have to set our bar high if we are to ever be a true world-class city. I'm hoping that none of these proposals are accepted at this time, yet instead, these developers are encouraged to be part of a process where the city and its stakeholders are able to collectively set forth a vision of not only what this Vice property should ultimately be, but also what the city of San Bernardino should ultimately be. We must focus on our general plan first. This won't just alleviate protests, but aid developers in their process of helping enhance our community, contribute to our city's economic growth, and in all fairness, be a sound investment for them. I am formally requesting that this item is tabled until update is completed. Thank you. Good evening, Council. My name is Kim Kanas, and I'm a longtime resident of our city.
Just a moment, please.
This is Barbara Babcock, a member of the 7th Ward. I am almost speechless. Mayor John Valdivia is asking for $50,000 of the people's money to defend against his untoward actions. Do as San Diego did. Make him pay and spend his own money for his defense against sexually harassing his employees. Even as a council member, John was previously warned in writing that he was putting the city in jeopardy. And yet here we are, a mayor who apparently has no self-control. He proudly says that he is the king. To each council member, remember you serve this city, not just your ward. We are watching. The entire city is growing weary. Vote no for $50,000 for legal fees. Vote no even for $500. Mayor, my words to you, keep your pants zipped. Seek therapy and resign.
Susie Rose, I wanted to make a comment about the proposal for development of the Vice property. The Vice property is in my community, and I was wondering why there was no community outreach done by any of the developers to see what our city and community wanted to see in that neighborhood. We've had a lot of things happen up here with homeless, and we just want to make sure that whatever is done in our community is done to improve our property value and our quality of life. And we don't want a bunch of warehouses up here. So thank you very much for the time.
Okay, the next one is the last recording.
My name is Tim Prince. I'm a lifelong resident of San Bernardino and an attorney in downtown San Bernardino for 30 years. I'm calling to make a public comment on the April 15th agenda, which is not available online. If you try to go to the April 15th council meeting date on the website, it gives you nowhere to click. and there's no way to make comments except to call this number, which says has to be done before 4:30, which is inconvenient and doesn't provide proper notice to the public. As to tonight's meeting, there's a request for $50,000 to hire more attorneys to handle more cases involving the mayor's intentional and negligent acts. That request should be denied. $50,000 won't begin to defend the mayor's indiscretions, and the mayor has been very open and has bragged more times than I can count about his ability to raise money. So he should raise money for his defense from all his liquor store supporters and other undesirable business interests. They can fund the mayor's defense. This city is $5 million underwater. We should not spend our reserves on defending this failed mayor. The mayor has been completely unsuccessful. He has failed to move any of the important items that the public desires, including the vacant Carousel Mall, 60 acres, the vacant abandoned Radisson Hotel. He's done nothing to work with the property owner, encourage the property owner, or bring a legal action against the property owner to abate the nuisance of that large building, which is more than an eyesore in our downtown. And for the empty city hall, he's done nothing to save the tens of thousands of dollars of rent that we spend every month to occupy space that should be used for private business. And we have a beautiful city hall building that can be occupied currently with no earthquake work, and a plan should be launched to address the earthquake problems. Mayor, you're a failure. You make this city worse. Please resign. No money for you. Thank you.
Mayor, I'd like to make a brief announcement regarding tonight's agenda. The agenda was originally posted on Friday, April 10th, but was down today for about an hour and a half due to some technical difficulties, and so I had to repost it. I did make sure to make a note of that in the message that I sent out to the public. It is on there as well, and members of the public are available to leave comments, recorded messages, or to send comments to the email provided on the agenda beginning Friday whenever the agenda is posted. I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much, Ms. City Clerk. At this time, let's go ahead.
Can I make a quick comment?
No, you can reserve comment for
I want to comment.
later. We're going to go ahead and get into staff reports. The first item is COVID-19 impact on city operations and revenue.
No, I make a
We'll
motion
go ahead
that
and
we-
hear a staff
Sorry, I
report.
want to comment
No,
on.
I'm sorry, you're out of order, Mr. Charette. Mr.
No,
Charette,
I
we
want
need to
to comment
proceed
as
with
well.
our meeting
John, you're
tonight.
not going to shut me down.
Mr. Charette, we need to proceed with our meeting tonight, so
No,
let's go ahead
I want to
and hear
comment
from our
on
city,
comments, and I want to
the
say
city
that-
manager. The city manager, I'm instructing
I
you
make a
please to go
motion
ahead
that we
with
approve
item
the
number
decision
one.
of the
Mr.
chair.
Charette, you're out of order, sir.
I make
You're
a
out of
motion
order.
that we
Mr.
approve the
Mulvihill.
decision of the chair.
No, I
Mr.
have a
Charette,
comment.
Mr. Mulvihill, you're out of order, sir.
No.
We're going to proceed with our staff report.
No,
Call
call the vote.
Right? And she's got everything
We're
up.
going to go ahead and
It's all
proceed.
available online now.
I understand you guys want to comment, but we're going to go ahead and proceed with our staff report,
No.
item number one.
No,
Go ahead,
I
Ms. City
have
Manager.
three public comments.
The city manager,
I have
please
three
go
public
ahead.
comments. I have three
No.
public comments that have been asked that I read.
Okay,
into
go
the
ahead,
record.
Mr. Nickel. Go ahead. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, I have three public comments. First comment, members of the city council and city manager. The city of San Bernardino again is in the news for wrong and unprecedented reasons. The bankruptcy alone severely tarnished the image of the city and will drastically affect the city's ability to keep the much needed existing businesses and attract new ones. Now to add more wood to the fire, the city's mayor is involved in sexual harassment, hostile work environment, and corruption allegations. When is the negative news coverage and publicity going to end? The lawsuits that the city is currently involved in is diverting the revenue and finances that are critical to adequately service the residents of the city. Instead, the money is being spent on lawyers and settlements at the expense of the city residents. The allegations against the mayor are very serious and could have more negative consequences that will cause further damage to the city's image that is already on life support. I know that as a city council, your hands are tied as far as your options in dealing with the allegations against the mayor. However, I would encourage you as a united city council in closed session to ask the mayor to do what is best for the city and do the right and noble thing and resign and stop the bleeding before it is too late. The mayor resigning, the city council could focus more on running the city more effectively and efficiently without the distractions of the mayor's alleged criminal and unprofessional behavior. With the coronavirus, current and possible future lawsuits and settlements, we are headed to declaring bankruptcy again. A second bankruptcy will be unheard of in the history of city municipalities and the demise of San Bernardino as we currently know it. The second comment I received: attention city council and city staff. Aren't you all tired of this? Now allegations almost daily. More and more stories flowing out about Mayor Valdivia. Important decisions must now be made. The city council needs to stand up and show some leadership. Valdivia has taken enough already from San Bernardino. The city has endured enough John Valdivia corruption. It is time to start operating correctly. I know that there are numerous ongoing investigations from different entities into John. More is going to come out. Tonight, you are making a decision to pay for the mayor's legal fees. If you vote to do that, you are setting a wrong precedent. You yourselves have put this mayor on notice at least twice before that his conduct towards staff was unacceptable. By voting to pay his legal fees now, you are telling the mayor that what he did was not wrong, and you now approve of it. In other words, you are ratifying his actions. Again, big decisions must be made tonight. I urge you to step forward on the right foot. Thank you. And the last comment. Tonight, you are making a decision to pay for the mayor's legal fees. If you vote to do that, you are setting a wrong precedent. You yourselves have put this mayor on notice at least twice before that his conduct towards staff was unacceptable. By voting to pay his legal fees now, you are telling the mayor that what he did was not wrong, and you now approve of it. In other words, you are ratifying his actions. Those are 3 comments. I will provide those to the clerk for the public record.
Thank you very much, Henry. Any other public comments via
Yes,
Fred or Jim?
Yes,
Go ahead.
They all deal essentially with the response from the police dispatch. First one from Jeanette McCaig. One of my close neighbors received an email. Oh, no, let me read on. I also read next door that a gas station at 34th and E was robbed and the police did not come out. And another incident where a resident was having a potential break-in and they refused to come out as well. And they go on to another issue, but also to another resident talking about the fact of calling the police department about a loud party and fireworks being blown off. And he called in and dispatch told her that the police would not come only for life-threatening emergencies. I think there may be a misunderstanding in dispatch because I also contacted Lieutenant Carell and she indicated that in fact there's other actions that in fact the police will respond to. And also I want to recognize the fact there was a comment made by a person regarding the illegal cannabis operation on 1100 block of Highland Avenue that was closed down yesterday afternoon. I heard about it Monday morning and sent a couple of emails out, and it was closed down yesterday, Tuesday afternoon, and I want to really congratulate the police department and really applaud their quick action with regard to that. And I think that if I know Captain Pellis was on the line, if Chief McBride is on the line too, just want to indicate maybe you better talk to dispatch and make sure they're clear that the police are not just responding to life-threatening issues. because a lot of residents are very much concerned about that. Thank you.
I have comments here.
Okay.
One is from
Go ahead,
Luis
Ted.
Ojeda, and he wrote to me here saying, I do not believe the residents of San Bernardino should have to pay the legal cost of defending Mayor Valdivia. Mr. Valdivia, through his own negligence and reckless behavior, has invited many of the claims against him. The money can be better spent on more pressing issues in our community. The mayor has bragged in the past about being able to raise large amounts of money. This is a good time for him to put those skills to work for him. Vote no for the city to pay Valdivia's legal fees. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Richard, go ahead.
Yes. So I have a letter to read, email to read. It says, as a taxpayer in this community, I am asking you to resign as mayor for the good of the citizens and taxpayers in the city of San Bernardino. Your lack of leadership during the most trying times in the life of the city, COVID-19, coupled with the fact you have been distracted by sexual harassment and other lawsuits brought on by the staff under your authority. I join with the many citizens voicing disapproval of your administration. I don't have the confidence that you can or will put San Bernardino back on the right track. So, Mayor, I join with Council Member Sandra Ibarra, the Sun newspaper's editorial board, and others for you to resign immediately. Now to the City Council. I see you have before you tonight's meeting a request to approve a request from the mayor for the city to pay for his legal costs to defend his misdoings. The mere fact that he is asking means it is not a proven fact he is entitled to this request. Therefore, I am requesting no demanding that you reject his request. I base this demand on those facts. The mayor had been warned back in 2018, the city attorney that his behavior was wrong and could jeopardize the city to undue legal cost. This has been proven to be true for your recent settlement of the former city manager lawsuit of $750,000. I thank you for your service and look forward to doing the right thing on the behalf of the citizens who pay taxes. Signed, Hardy Brown Sr. Hardy Brown Publishers, Black Voice News.
Thank you very much.
Mayor, this is the city clerk, sorry. I just received word that I missed one of the recordings and I would like to play it for you and for the council.
Great, go ahead.
My name is Tressie Capps, TRESSYCAPPS, and I'm almost a one-year resident of the city of San Bernardino. And I was told there's a council meeting tonight. I see it on your website. I don't see the link to the agenda, however. So I'm just going to blindly put some things out there. I saw something in the paper about the mayor wanting the city to fund his legal defense fee fund for $50,000 in the paper. And I think that's a very bad idea. And I would say no to that. He can defend himself if he's going to run around and, whatever he's alleged to have done. I don't think the city of San Bernardino residents should be on the hook for his behavior. If he, so that's what I think about that. And the other thing is about this. I heard something about moving homeless people into a hotel over at 2000 Ostrom's Way behind Taco Bell there, and I went and I made a YouTube video going on there, and I actually it's on my YouTube channel. Tressie Capps is the name of the channel. You can find the YouTube. The name of the video is 2000 Ostrom's Way, San Bernardino. Anyways, I videotaped what's going on there, and I know the county is the one that would supposedly move these people in there. I talked to a guy that lives there now. Currently, he's paying $55 a day, and he said not a very nice place to stay for that kind of money. I mean, if you do the math, $55 a day times 30, that's $16.50 a month. Anyways, he was selling candy to pay his rent or whatever you want to call it. but I just, invite you guys to if you haven't been up there. It's just kind of run down, and looks like there could be some code enforcement violations. The guy I talked to yesterday said he didn't even have a TV in his room for $55 a night. I'd go to a different hotel. Anyways, so I don't necessarily have an opinion about bringing more homeless people to the area, but there's already quite a bit living there now. So I go to that Taco Bell all the time, and it's a very interesting trip through the drive-thru every time. All manner of people doing all sorts of things. That is what I love about the city of San Bernardino, by the way. It's very free, and I do like that. So I'm very pleased living here. I don't know if this is, if there really is a city council meeting tonight, but if there is, and people are interested in, my 2 minutes is up. There it is.
That's the end.
Okay, thank you. Let's go ahead and move into our staff reports. Ms. City Manager, we have item number 1, which is COVID-19 impact
Mayor,
on city operations. Yes.
Mayor, excuse me. I'm sorry. I was muted and I didn't get in quickly enough. I just
Go
want
ahead, Fred.
a little shout out here. Number one, I agree with Jim. I understand the situation there at 1120 East Highland Avenue, and I think the PD acted very responsibly and shut that issue down and have corrected the problem, at least temporarily. And I hope they stay on it, and I want to give them kudos for doing what they did and responding. The other thing I'd like to do, again, we've heard a lot of negativity tonight, but with regard to the COVID-19 issue, I want to give a big shout out and acknowledge and send thanks to 2 restaurants up on 40th Street. They joined together on Easter Sunday to provide free Easter meals to anybody. You didn't have to qualify. Anybody that showed up, they provided free Easter meals on Sunday. And the 2 restaurants, I think we all probably could guess who they are, but I'll tell you. One, of course, is DJ's Restaurant or DJ's Coffee Shop, and the other is Ye Old Lamplighter. Those 2 restaurants joined together and provided free meals to anybody that would show up. I don't know what the final outcome is or how many they served, but the fact that they stepped up during this very difficult time and really said thank you to their customers, I just want to thank both of them and the management of both of them and recognize them for the job that they did over Easter Sunday and their generosity during these really difficult and crazy times that we're dealing with. So thank you to the Lamplighter and to DJ's Restaurant for what they did over Easter Sunday. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fred. Thank you. And thank you to our community restaurants for providing that. Before we get into item number 1 on staff reports, there was a public, I want to respond to a couple of public comments. Ms. Hunter, I appreciate your call from Rancho Cucamonga. I want to encourage you to please reach out to the county supervisor or the mayor of Rancho Cucamonga for your issues regarding your particular jurisdiction. The city of San Bernardino, it's a large city, 65 square miles, and I'll point you to your city mayor, Mr. Michaels, and the city council there in Rancho. And then Mr. Gonzalez regarding the airport. The airport is an economic driver in our community. I take to heart your suggestion. Unfortunately, that is for economic, robust airport operations, but we are working on a plan here locally. And regarding Ms. Rowe, appreciate your comments. Thank you very much. The leadership, I have done twice weekly 2 broadcasts or 2 tapings at the Channel 3, and we have published those, and we send out emails and regular updates twice weekly. I have done those. There's some updates on Facebook as well. So we have done some of those opportunities for a community update. So I'll point you to our city website. You can get all those information and points there and closures and the latest impacts to our community. I want to encourage you to go out to www.sbcity.org and find those resources of COVID, of what we're doing as a city. This is a council manager form of government. We have made that very clear in November of 2016. So we're working in collaboration with our city manager, who's, by the way, doing a fine job. And I thank you very much, Terry, for all your leadership in working with me and alongside me during these COVID. I really do appreciate all your help and your staff. So with that, let's get right into item number 1. It's COVID-19 impact on city operations. As a precursor to tonight's item, we don't have a crystal ball, and I appreciate council members for trying to bring up this subject. Unfortunately, we don't have a crystal ball. In this agenda item, you'll see a lot of point twos as to we still don't know the impacts, but I'll turn it over to our city manager for her presentation.
Thank you very much, Mayor. And thank you. You said exactly what I was going to start with. We do have quite a bit of information on our website, sbcity.org, and it's updated every day, if not hourly, as we get it from the county health department. So I encourage folks to go to our website and get that information. We have testing sites there, the services that we're offering, those kinds of things. And if you don't have access to the website, you can always call a call center. We do have our folks still working there. That number is 384-7272, and they can answer any questions that you may have. So we'll get started. I know that you had asked for this update several weeks ago. It took some time to pull this together. We basically redid our mid-year report in order to come up with some of these estimates. So I think we've got a lot of good information. As the mayor said, we don't have a crystal ball. We just did the best we could. Other cities are struggling with this as well, as I'm sure you're aware. So since we declared the local emergency on March 13th due to this pandemic, the city's taken a number of steps to ensure that the city has strong public safety presence, maintains our infrastructure, and supports vulnerable populations through services like the senior meal program. And we do have a moratorium on evictions, unlike the caller thought we didn't, for residential and commercial tenants for non-payment of rent. While the city has had to change how we operate to slow the spread of COVID-19 and protect the health of the public and our staff, we continue to provide essential services to our community. The public counters have been closed, however, services to continue by phone, email, and electronic means. Changes have been made to work schedules where possible staff is working remotely. All non-emergency police reports are now being filed online. Community events, sports, and recreation programming has been suspended, and police officers are conducting regular patrols to encourage social distancing in our public spaces. And I think I'm going to turn it over to our police chief, Eric McBride, for just a moment so he can talk to you about some of the things in light of the comments that we've received tonight about what the police department is doing.
Good evening, Mayor and Common Council. I don't see myself on the screen. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So police departments all across the country have modified their responses due to the COVID-19. As you've probably seen in the news and across the country, there are police departments that have been greatly affected by having staff go down because of illness and stuff. In fact, 20% of the New York Police Department is calling off sick on a daily basis. Locally, we've seen that Riverside Sheriff's, for example, has reported that 55 employees are sick and 2 deputies have passed away due to COVID-19. So when we look at our response, we definitely wanted to modify our response for 2 reasons. So first of all, we wanted to make sure that our officers do not get exposed to people that may have to be sick if it's not necessary for them to do so. But also, we have a young workforce, especially the workforce that's in the field. Most of them, if they do become sick, are asymptomatic, so they're not showing that they're necessarily sick. And our officers can respond to anywhere from 10 to 15 to sometimes 20 calls in a day. That means they're going from one location to another on a regular basis. As much as we don't want our officers to get sick unnecessarily, we don't want our officers to infect members of the public as well if they just happen to be sick and asymptomatic. So it really required us to really look at the calls that we're going to respond to. So definitely we want to still respond to immediate and life-threatening emergencies. We're still going to respond to those. Very serious threats to bodily injury if there's a potential for that. And also felony and other serious crimes in progress. But also there's been some talk about some other crimes. But we also want to make sure that we respond to potentially serious circumstances such as domestic violence and in progress misdemeanors or suspicious persons. However, if there's no immediate threat to anybody of injury or the crime has already occurred and the suspect is gone and there's no longer a threat, but the people desire a report, we've really pushed a lot of those off to our online reporting, and there's a good number of crimes, both felony and misdemeanor, that can be reported online, and we direct people there to make those calls, reports. There's other reports that can't necessarily be made over our online reporting system, so we take those reports over the phone. But other circumstances where we need to get out there, officers are responding, as those calls that I've already mentioned, that they're going out there. We also still are towing cars if necessary, and doing other types of calls. And for people that want to get their car back if it's been towed, we've actually gone to a system where we can do that online. So people can still get their cars released if they're impounded or towed and stuff like that. So we've really moved it. A great deal of our services that do not necessarily require an in-person report or contact with the police department, we've moved that to online or over the phone, but we're still out there. Matter of fact, the couple of council members mentioned that location on East Highland Avenue. We did go out there this week. We made quite a few numbers of arrests there. We see some guns and some drugs, and we shut that location down. We are still responding to things. Today I just saw some information come across my desk where some officers were out serving search warrants for narcotics violations across the city and seizing a good number of drugs off the street. So we're still out there doing what we need to do to protect the public and ensure that there's a continuity of service, that we don't have a good number of our police department sick and unable to come to work.
Thank you. Appreciate that. We're going to get into the financial impact section next. This next slide here. I want to thank our finance director, Paul Espinoza. He was certainly here to answer your calls, for reaching out to our consultants, and like I said, just basically redoing our mid-year report and our mid-year estimates based on this crisis. So the loss of revenue related to the COVID-19 pandemic is going to have significant impact to the city. Our major revenue sources, as you know, are sales tax, Measure Z sales tax, the transient occupancy tax, which is paid on our hotels, and our use of money and property. Due to this outbreak, the stay-at-home order, local revenues have experienced significant decrease. It's no surprise to anyone from our mid-year projections. So at mid-year, we had projected our general fund revenue to be about $132 million. We've now updated that figure to only $126.9 million, which is an estimated decline of about $5.1 million. It's just happening the last quarter of this fiscal year. Our sales taxes are expected to decline by $3.8 million, which is 9.9% in the following categories: general consumer goods, down 30.4%, auto and transportation, down 34%, restaurants and hotels, down 35%, business and industry, 23%, fuel and service stations, 32%, and building and construction, down 27%. This next chart shows you our sales tax starting in 2013, when we were just below, $15 million, and we've gradually increased and come back up to a good place, and thought we were making some progress, and thought we would hold steady at mid-year. But unfortunately, we've dropped back down, as I reported on the previous slide. Our estimates are that we'll be dropping back down. The Measure Z tax, which is our quarter-cent sales tax, as you all know, is expected to decrease about $610,000, which is 6.5% compared to our mid-year projection. This chart also depicts our Measure Z sales tax rates, which when in 2013 was about little over $4 million, steadily kind of grew, went back down in 2018, but as you can see, the actuals in 2019, we were making our way back up. Mid-year projection, we projected a little bit of a downfall, but not too much, but now we've had to readjust that number down as well. The transient occupancy tax that's paid on motel and hotel rooms. We reached out to a number of hotels and motels, and they're estimating their 1920 expected TOT is going to decline by about $575,000, which is 11.6% compared to what our mid-year projection was. Another chart showing the history of our transient occupancy tax. Following the same course as the previous slides. Use of money and property. These revenues at mid-year were anticipated to be about $509,000. These are from requested, we've had several, these are from folks that lease from us, lease from our property, and we've had several lease waivers and lease cancellations. For a decline of $180,000, which is 18.7% than expected. And those are from the Big Five Sporting Goods, the Shannon Hills Golf Course, which actually provided us with a 30-day termination letter, and our Regal Cinemas that's based on gross receipts from their sales. Overall, the general fund expenditures appear to be in line with mid-year projections. However, we are taking steps to try to decrease our expenses. Difficult to do when you're in the last couple months of the fiscal year, but we're certainly trying. So when we compare these general fund revenues to expenditures, it reflects a deficit of about $5.1 million for this fiscal year. Again, here's another chart showing our general fund revenues to expenditures, what was adopted at the beginning of the year, what the mid-year estimate was, and where we're anticipating ending now with this crisis. We had originally estimated at mid-year we'd have about $100,000 surplus to end the year with. Now we're readjusting that figure to a negative $5.5 million. Our general fund reserves at mid-year, we had reflected an overall general fund balance of $29.2 million, but based on the revenue loss of $5.1 million as a result of this pandemic and the stay-at-home order, the expected general fund balance is expected to end the year with $24.818 million for 2019-20. Again, this chart is depicting the history of our general fund reserve. As you can see, right about the year of the bankruptcy, we only had about $3.6 million in reserves, and that steadily had increased up to $32 million, $30 million, almost $39 million. And in fiscal year 18-19, it was $31 million, back down to the mid-year projection of 29. And unfortunately, now we're projecting $24 million at the end of the year. This is our reserve policy for our reserves. For emergency reserves, it's 15% of the adopted budget, which should be the target policy is about $19 million. The actual reserves that we had at June 30th, 2019, we were right on target, and projected will be the same for this year. Now, the economic contingency reserve, which is there just for what we're experiencing right now, should normally be 10% of our adopted budget. We started out at $12 million, $10 million at June of 2019, and now we're projecting $5 million less. Excuse me, I'm looking at the bottom number down here. 24 million is the number I talked about. This depicts our revenues in various categories. Obviously, it looks like charges for services, fines and forfeitures, franchise tax, intergovernmental, that's our grants, investment income, licenses and permits. Those things we expect to stay steady. It's when we get into the Measure Z sales tax, as I talked about, that we have the deficits. We're down $6.1 million for Measure Z sales tax, 11% in our transient occupancy tax, and about 9.9% in regular sales tax, and then money and property, 18%. This would be our ending position, as I showed you a couple slides earlier. So we had anticipated, we'd hoped that we would end with $29 million in reserves, and we anticipate $24 million. The gas tax is another area where we're going to suffer. Obviously, people aren't going anywhere. Things have slowed down quite a bit. So at mid-year, our gas tax, our highway users tax fund was expected to end the year with a surplus of about $822,000. But based on the stay-at-home order, we are expected to be reduced between 15 and 30% is what the estimates are, which could mean about $826,000 to $1.6 million. So this could result at the worst part of the 30% loss and a negative fund balance of $829,000. So we're recommending that we defund a certain CIP project to be safe so that the general fund doesn't have to cover this loss. And that would be postponing some of the streetlight knockdowns that are funded through this account to the tune of about $600,000. If it ends up being at the lower end, then we'll be better off, but we'd better be safe than sorry. This schedule shows you what the best case scenario would be. We had anticipated having revenues in this column here and having a surplus at the end. At the 15% loss, we'd have just a little bit of a deficit, but at the 30% loss, we'd have an $800,000 deficit. So we want to be careful and maybe hold off on these streetlight repairs to the tune of the $600,000, which would leave us a fund balance if it isn't as bad as we thought, but it could leave us a deficit of $227,000 worst case scenario, which would have to be repaid by the general funds. We want to be really careful there. The cost recovery funding. So staff, what are we doing going forward? Staff is seeking every available opportunity to track and obtain funding to address the COVID-19 related expenditures so that we can get reimbursement through FEMA or other means. We've also allocated the $2.5 million and the $1 million in ESG funding that the HUD, we received from the HUD, which is the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security, the CARE Act, to cover COVID-19 related expenditures. And we're just learning more about that source of funding, but those are San Bernardino's amounts. And we'll be coming back to you with some ideas on what we can use that available funding for. Programming plan and for the use of these funds will be prepared for approval by HUD and for the mayor and city council. So the next steps, what are we doing? We've taken the city's non-essential part-time personnel have unfortunately been furloughed and not given any hours and working reduced schedules based on operational need. We've canceled obviously all non-mandatory travel and training, and other cost-saving measures are under review, such as holding positions vacant, additional furloughs, or deferment or elimination of other planned expenditures. The impact that COVID-19 will have on the city revenues and operations going into next fiscal year is currently being analyzed and will be incorporated into the preliminary budget review in May. We had been working on the budget. We had a plan, and obviously that plan has changed now. So the repayment schedule for any use of reserves required to carry the city through this emergency period will be incorporated into the proposed budget for future operating years. It is a requirement that as we use those for emergency purposes, we create a plan to build them back up. That's the last slide. I think there's one more, Mitch.
Okay, are you done? Does that complete your presentation?
I believe we're done and we're open for questions. And as I said, Paul's here as well.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Terry. Before we get started into comments, I want to reiterate, we don't, these are a lot of projections. We are using a 15% and a 13% graph that Terry alluded to on the HUDA tax. There's a recommendation before you on next steps with 3 options. So obviously, council members, if you've done your homework on packet page 14, option 1 is the recommended with option 2 and 3. Those are staff recommendations. And I think this also points to, again, there was a public comment of, no leadership on COVID-19. I beg to differ. Our city council, myself, and we're very engaged. In fact, Terry and I were probably on 2 or 3 conference calls at minimum with federal and state county folks, trying to claw those resources for us. We've created a cost center accounting format. Maybe Mr. Espinoza could talk about that to track all of our expenses related to COVID, all of the closures, all of the impacts, in hopes to one day somehow seek reimbursement or provide that spreadsheet to our federal and state officials for reimbursement. So maybe Paul, can you talk on that, or the opportunity as we are still unraveling this whole COVID? Are there federal dollars here more on new phases as the federal money's rolled out? Terry or Paul?
I'll go ahead and take this, Terry. Thank you, Mayor, for your questions. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. We're looking at federal reimbursements for some of our expenses. At this time, what we're doing is we're tracking all expenses that we have related to COVID-19. everything from lost revenues to expenditures that the city is taking on as a result to help mitigate this. We're tracking all of that in the hopes that we'll be able to get some reimbursement from federal or OES. So at this time, we are tracking those expenditures and lost revenues. I don't know that we're going to be getting 100% reimbursement from everything, but we're going to give it our best shot.
Okay, very good. And I think the good glimmer of hope is that we already received, Terry, you alluded to a $1 million grant that we just received from CDBG, as well as the allocation of CDBG of $2 million. Was that right?
Yeah, CDBG is 2 million and ESG, which is your Emergency Solutions Grant, is 1 million.
Okay, and so those are the results of the hard work our staff is monitoring. I'm certainly shuffling a lot of emails because I'm on these U.S. Conference of Mayors panels and whatnot, and hearing and assessing a lot of those opportunities for our community. Believe me, public, I am very concerned about COVID-19. We are doing the best fiscally to make those conservative efforts to limit the impacts to us. So we'll go ahead and open it to questions or comments. This is a receive and file. I think you are asking for a recommendation on packet page 14. So I guess we're going to have to take a vote on that. Is that right, Terry?
No, actually, Mayor, we're not asking for a vote on that. We're going to take the more conservative approach unless you ask us not to at this point, and we could bring you back something in the future. But I think we should take.
So option 1 is what you're recommending.
Absolutely, yeah. And I don't think we need to vote on it.
And that's the conservative. Okay, all right. All right, council members, any questions, comments? Henry?
Yeah, are we getting any indication of what the effect of COVID will be on CalPERS and what that obligation may result in terms of our budget? Are we getting any sense of the effect of COVID on CalPERS?
Thank you, council member. We've reached out to CalPERS to try and get a better handle on this. Our responses from CalPERS and what they've put out is most likely we will see a rate increase. At this time, it's too early to tell. Best scenario that CalPERS is providing right now is we would probably see an increased rate after the 2021 year. So we would be looking at 21-22 fiscal year to implement a new rate. They can't say with any kind of certainty what that rate increase will be. It's all going to be a matter of the economy bouncing back and if and when the economy will start being active. They're reluctant to give us any kind of estimate at this time, and we can all understand why.
Thank you.
Sir.
Mayor?
Even if we do get, I'm sorry, can you hear me, guys? There we go. So on packet page 13, Paul, I just want to interject here. You suggest that our payments wouldn't even go into effect if those were captured because of the impacts of COVID and the lower estimates by CalPERS till July of 2022. Is that still accurate? So we have maybe a window to catch up or to project future payments to CalPERS.
That's correct. We're monitoring this and we're working with CalPERS on this, as every city is. The impact won't be felt by CalPERS or measured until after the end of the next fiscal year. So what they're doing right now is what they do is they do their estimates, their rate estimates, based on one complete year. This year is not complete yet, as we know. When we see the impact of these rates, it will be taking place in a year from July. So that's when they'll start doing their math and their averaging. They'll provide us with our evaluation report, and we'll go ahead and work that into our rates at that time. That we don't expect that to be hitting our fiscal year budget until after the next fiscal year.
Perfect. Councilmember Barra, question?
I have several questions. Just for the record, I want to clarify, Mr. Paul Espinosa, you can probably confirm or deny it. On the packet agenda item, page 12, which is page 18 on the slide that we saw right now. When you say property tax in lieu of VLF, should be the opposite side, right? It should be the vehicle license fees that we received in lieu of the property taxes. Can you clarify that information for the public?
That's correct. This is not the property tax that the city generates normally. This is the property tax that we receive in lieu of VLF. This is part of that triple flip that had been done years and years ago at the city.
Triple flip, yeah.
Okay, so it's not regarding the annexation then, right?
No, Councilwoman, that is
Okay.
correct.
Thank you. That was I just wanted to ask on that one. Second of all, with the money that we're getting for CDBG and ESG, I think our city, this is an opportunity for our city to step up and take care of our own homeless. I know at the last council meeting, we were not supporting what the county's plan was to bring them into our city from other locations. But if we have ESG money and CDBG money that we got to answer to the COVID-19, this is a chance for us to house them. The only concern that I'm having with providing them with housing is the county actually had a press release of short-term lodging facilities ordered to close until further notice. So I don't know how we're supposed to help our homeless within our city when there's this order placed upon us by the county. If our city staff can please follow up with the county on it, that'd be great. However, with that ESG and CDBG money, this is an opportunity to actually help the homeless that we have in our city. I've been talking to our churches and some of the shelters. They are very limited on who they can allow into their shelters right now because they have to be within 6 feet apart minimum. That's a recommendation from the state. So we right there already are not able to house, not even with the beds that we had prior to the COVID pandemic being mentioned. So Ms. City Manager, please definitely mention to the county about the public health order that they placed. And this was done actually the day after our council meeting on Thursday, April 2nd. That's when that came out. And let's look at helping our homeless. I'm pretty sure somebody made a comment that Trustee Caps, I believe, that there's a hotel up north on Ostrom Way that charges $55 a night. Of course, it's not in the best conditions, but if we do the math, I think we can house as many as possible. And there are homeless out there that are seeking shelter. They just can't get it. The other thing that we need, this is a question from somebody that's working with Central City Lutheran. Central City Lutheran, besides not able to accommodate the men that they usually do, they're also looking to see if we can provide them with testing kits for COVID to test the men that they do serve on a nightly basis. And that's where we can definitely use the ESG and CDBG. So those are my comments on that one.
Councilmember Barra, that's a good point, but I think our response on that should be interfacing with the county public health officer. I mean, that is a specific request that you can easily send an email to Dr. Gustafson to work in collaboration with City Lutheran.
And that's why
that's a great opportunity.
Yes, and that's why I'm mentioning it here so that our city manager and city staff can, and even our public, they're wondering what we're doing with the homeless that are currently in our city. So it's nice to put it out publicly so they know that we are going to be taking a proactive action on this and not, use the money somewhere else. The other question I have, and this might be for Acting Chief McBride, and maybe the city manager, what are we doing with enforcing the state executive orders and the county orders with social distancing? I know that was a concern with people that are still going to the stores without wearing their mask. We're having, as we mentioned earlier in the meeting, people going to events per se and behind buildings and parking at our parks. I know the parks department also just shared that nobody's allowed to park at our parks, but yet nobody's enforcing those. So I'd like to hear from our acting chief or city manager, what are we doing to enforce that people stay at home, that they're wearing their mask when they're out publicly and practicing social distancing as we would like everybody to do.
Thank you for the question, Councilmember. So the governor's order, if you listen to him, he said that he wants voluntary compliance. And so with that lead, what we're doing is we're encouraging people to voluntarily comply with the order to wear masks or not congregate together to create social distancing. And I think that's the best way forward is to encourage social distancing. And if you see people out there that you see that are with you or near you, encourage them to do the same. I think that's really the approach that we should take. I don't think that we want a police state. We're not under martial law. We don't want to drag people away from their kids and put them in jail. So I think that encouraging social distancing and having people wear masks and ask them to do so is probably the best way forward.
Okay, and we from my feedback though, I've already been out there in the public, and from my vehicle, I do tell people to please stay away from each other at least 6 feet, to wear their masks. People are not taking it seriously though. Our numbers are going up higher every day as far as the confirmed COVID cases. I also worry about our own officers. As we mentioned, there's some officers that are asymptomatic and they don't show that they have the virus. And I'm loving the outpour of support that we're having from the community with our PD right now, with them getting gloves and hand sanitizers and the gloves, the face masks. But when I see them out there without a face mask, I really worry for their health and the people they interact with. I mean, that's just what I've encountered as I'm out in my district. So
okay, Terry, maybe we can address the availability. I mean, I know we get emails consistently on the opportunity for PPE, personal protection for departments and whatnot. Can you briefly address that? Because I think our city has done exceptionally well at providing that list to department heads, and it's incumbent upon those department heads to then distribute that and make sure that our employees are safe.
That's correct. Our HR department is handling that and making sure that we have a consistent amount of supplies and monitoring our supplies as they go down. So our HR director is on the line, but I believe that our employees have what they need, particularly our police officers and those that are out in the field.
Okay, great. Let's. Any other final questions here?
Yes, I did. I just wanted to see what the cost savings was in furloughing and a list of who these part-time employees would have been. That was not included.
What's your question, Sandra? What is your question? I'm sorry, I can't. What's your question?
What is the cost? What is the cost savings to furloughing our temporary and part-time employees? And also, what kind of services were they providing? Do we know for a fact that what services they were providing does not hold up anything from still moving on with the city?
Yeah, the services the part-time employees are furloughed right now were not essential services, so we could not use them in that capacity. I don't have a dollar amount because it fluctuates based on the need and the folks that we're using at a time. So I don't have a dollar amount for you, but it's only those folks that can't do their jobs right now based on what we have going on. For instance, we're coming into hiring lifeguards who may not be able to use those lifeguards depending on whether the pool's open or not, things like that.
Okay, thank you. And then I do have one more question, Mayor, if I may. I'm trying to think how to word it. But I'll let one of my colleagues ask questions and I'll come back to it. Thank you.
All right, thanks. All right, let's open it up. Any final questions, comments? Brad, go ahead.
I have a real quick question, and that is about the allocations that come either from the state or the feds. What is the likelihood that we're going to actually get some money? And I know we're keeping good records of the costs related to the COVID-19, but does that include a shutdown of a restaurant, for example? Does that include the sales tax? What does that include? And what really are we going to, I know it's probably an estimate, it's probably a guesstimate, in fact, and probably no certainty at all, but are we going to really maybe get anything? In other words, let's say this thing costs us $5 million. Are we going to get back 2 million? Are we going to get back 5 million? Are we going to get back 4 million? Just an example.
Hey, Fred, Terry, let me just take a stab at that. This is the mayor. I just want to assure the council, I do sit as part of these panels and conference calls on some of the federal and the small business loans here. Obviously, we're encouraging those small business loans that are part of the Treasury bill to, actively encouraging those folks to get out there and, claim those dollars. And that's for the small business in our community. But as it relates to more the municipal and local governments, we need to be clear. I'll be sending out a letter tomorrow that recommends that we support the Schumer-Pelosi bill for the $54 billion coming to local municipalities, less than 500,000 people. Right now, the stimulus plan only affords earmarked dollars for populations or cities larger than $500,000. Well, you and I know, Fred, and our city council, we're about 235, 250 with all those annexed portions in our city. So we fall short of that. I've been in conversation with other cities in our county and other mayors, and they're kind of joining me in this fight to grab more of that stimulus dollars for populations less than 500,000. That's right now the federal bucket. We're petitioning and making sure that our congressman knows. So I'll be drafting a letter tomorrow and sending that. Happy to provide that to the city council and to the city manager. But in essence, it affords us to grab that, pull that money down and pull it through for cost savings. And Terry, I'll turn it back over to you.
Yeah, Mayor, we've heard the same thing. It's mainly what we're hearing is that it be coming down in the form of loans to help with cash flow for certain revenues that aren't coming in. So there may be a repayment plan. But at this point, I don't see us just getting cash from loss of revenue or something like that. The things that we're talking about reimbursement are direct costs related to this pandemic.
So to answer my question, then we really don't know. I get it. But my example is it costs us $5 million. We're keeping track of the costs related to COVID-19. We may get nothing back. We might get 100,000 back. We might get $1 million back. We might get the equivalent of our costs. But is the chances of us getting even equal to our costs, is that low or high? In other words, I'd be real thrilled if it costs us $500,000 or $5 million and we get back $4.4 million. I mean, so we're only upside down 600,000. You follow my question?
Totally follow your question. And honestly, I don't think we're going to have the expenses related to that you're thinking that we will have. It's things like having to purchase these PPEs and doing these things directly related. We probably aren't going to have, we could have overtime, I guess, associated with it. If we had that we would claim that. It's got to be directly associated with the pandemic in order for us to cost recovery. But I don't think they're going to consider loss of sales tax cost recovery.
Okay, well, that's a great answer. I mean, not the answer I want to hear, but that's what I want. That's what I want to clarify, that we're not going to get cost recovery for sales tax loss, for example, or the chances are we're not going to. Thank you.
Mayor?
We have a mayor or a mayor pro tem. You want me to take charge as a senior council member?
Okay, I just lost everyone there for a second. Were we done with that? Everything just cut out.
Oh, unless there's further questions.
Okay, so we didn't need to take any sort of action on this. So we've received the report. Shall we move on to item 2?
I'm back, guys. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Ted. Item number 2. Sorry. By the way, *6 really does help you. So if you're calling in, item number 2 is results of the letter of interest from the Vice property, and this is item 2 on staff reports. Go ahead, Terry.
Thank you, Mayor. My colleagues here are Director of Community.
Thank you, Terry. Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council, and the residents of San Bernardino, the item before you tonight is actually the results of a letter of interest that went out to solicit interest from the development community on the sales of the Bice property. And for the public's benefit, the Bice property is approximately 93 acres. It includes 129 vacant parcels and is located on the east side of the 215 freeway just north of Little League. The property was previously acquired by the former redevelopment agency. Subsequent to the dissolution of redevelopment by the state of California, this site became one of the properties that was included in the city's long-range property management plan for disposition, or actually the future sales of this property, which is why we're here tonight providing this information. So for the benefit of the public, the Bice property is in the city's long-range property management plan. It's identified as Site 26, and what its main intent was for is for the successor agency to transfer it over to the city for future development purposes. If the public's interested in getting more information about it, it's also located on the city's website under the long-range property management plan under Site 26. Now, the Bice property is the only currently available large-size, freeway-adjacent, vacant piece of property in single ownership within the city of San Bernardino. The property itself is zoned for low-density residential. It also includes a publicly owned flood control zoning designation also. So the main intent or use of this property based on the city's general plan and development code is for low-density residential. Taking into account, we have some existing conditions with the flood control area. With that, there are two factors that we think are very important for the liquidation or sales of this property. And those two factors are the fact that the property itself has been identified by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services as a San Bernardino Merriam kangaroo rat habitat. And what does that mean? That means that there's sensitive animals on the property or sensitive species that should be taken into account when someone's wanting to develop or purchase the property. The second issue associated with the property is that one of the parcels included within the overall site in its entirety, and three other parcels actually fall within a flood control area, and as such, there are flood control issues associated with it. So these two key issues or factors are very important for the city's disposition or sales of the property, along with anyone's purchase of the property, because as we proceed, and if we do sell the property at this particular point, this needs to be taken into account as part of the due diligence that a purchaser would typically do for this property. So with that, as I've indicated, the property was a former redevelopment asset, and it was for future development. So as such, the city went out and had released a letter of interest to solicit buyers who might be interested in buying and developing this property. The city had posted the letter of intent for a total of 30 days. The city did receive 3 proposals, and those 3 proposals are included within the council pack tonight, and it's part of the agenda item. So there were 3 companies, and staff has identified each of the 3 development entities, and I'll go through what they are considering on doing with the property if they were to acquire it. But I also want to mention that these are conceptual designs. Understand the prospective buyers were looking at the property, and we're looking at it for only about 30 days. So these are just general concepts. The first one is SA Marina LLC. Their proposal is referenced as the Bella Vista specific plan. The conceptual proposal includes a master plan of development for the entire site that would include a combination of commercial and industrial along the freeway off the 215 freeway, and the addition of residential of varying types throughout the remainder of the property itself. The second proposal that came in was from Watermark Homes, GFR Homes. Their proposal would be referred to as the University Heights. The conceptual proposal would include mixed-use master plan community that would include upwards of 500 detached residential dwellings, a championship soccer field, and possibly some logistics component like a warehouse and distributions. The third proposal that came in was from Howard Industrial Partners. The proposal would have to include the rezoning of the property, but would include the development of warehouse, logistic, and fulfillment buildings totaling approximately 1.97 million square feet. The developer contends that there is a great demand for additional fulfillment centers in the greater inland empire. Now, I do want to point out as I go through the latter part of this presentation that, as I indicated before, the BICE property currently today is primarily zoned for low-density residential infill housing. In addition to that, the property itself also has the publicly owned flood control designation that needs to be taken into account in regards to any infill growth or development on this property. So with that said, based on all three proposals submitted to the city for interest, all three submittals would have to go back, that have to do a zone change, a general plan amendment, and potentially an EIR for the development of the site based on what they've provided to the city today. So with that, staff has vetted the proposals. There was a two-step process. The first review was the submittal of the proposals themselves, the packets that came in, and staff had gone through those packets and reviewed those. Subsequent to that, staff did set up interviews for all three applicants. Went through, we conducted those interviews, and we rated them, and based on the rating, and this goes back to what we're rating them on is the submittal packets that came in with the information they provided, along with how they presented their information at the interviews. So with that, based on the interviews and the packet of information, we actually rated SM Marina LLC as a top scoring, and then Howard Industrial Partners as number 2, and then Watermark Homes and GFR Homes as 3. And I'd like to quickly cover why we had come to the decision we did. I do want to point out that we clearly understand that all three development entities are very capable in their own right. And based on all the information that was submitted, we feel very strongly that SA Marina LLC has the most solid team of professionals who can put together a project and then move a project forward. Now, we come to these conclusions based on the fact that, and the information shared with us, that the applicant has indicated that they are self-funded, although they do have some conventional funding. The primary funding source is self-funded. They have a development team of years of experience in designing and developing a multitude of a variety of projects. The professionals that they have brought on board are companies that have actually done analysis and studies on the subject site, as well as on the adjacent properties too, and they have the best understanding of what's on the ground and subsurface to be able to provide the technical studies. They did start community outreach in 2018, calling it the Bella Vista Specific Plan Area within this area of the city. And they've done community outreach and taken some of the feedback they received from the Vermont area. And the last, and I think a pretty important component, is the fact that they have an agreement with one of the adjacent property owners who owns a substantial amount of property, who would like to incorporate that into the overall design of their project if they were, or if the city was to proceed. So with that, in conclusion, we are recommending that the city council direct the city manager to proceed, where staff would engage SA Marina LLC in an exclusive right to negotiate, and then subsequent to moving that forward, that agreement would have to come back to council for final approval. So that concludes my presentation. I'm available for questions. I do want to point out that the copy of the letter of interest is attached to the packet. We also have attached all three of the proposals from 3 of the development entities. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Huntley. I have a quick question for you. I didn't really read anywhere in the backup material on this particular property. What is the appraised value, and walk us through? I believe that we, as city council members, have a fiduciary responsibility, not only to the city, but to the long-range management plan, Department of Finance. We are the trustees and the fiduciary responsibility. So right now, what is it appraised at?
So there's 2 parts to this, Mayor. And the first part is our long-range property management plan. It does identify that the overall site value is about $6.2 million. And then what they've done is they've taken out 2 issues. One of those is with the kangaroo rat mitigation and the issues with the flood control area. So I've taken those 2 components out. So the value in the long-range property management plan is $3.3 million. Now, before we proceed with a final value, I do want to make it clear that this was put together and approved by council back in 2015. Before we would move forward, we would then reappraise the property just to ensure what the current value is today before we come to a final number and present that to council.
My understanding is that there was one applicant that offered $4.1 million, which is higher than the 3.3 with the mitigated efforts. So what does staff have to report on kind of the variance there? At the end of the day, the city council should be really concerned about economic progress, the value of that, and what is the value of that offer versus what's considered tonight.
Well, really what's on the table tonight is just the fact that we have interested parties. We want to get a letter out finding who's interested in purchasing the property, and then based on that, that would be presented to council. And then really at that point, I mean, I don't disagree with you that selling the property to the highest value makes a lot of sense, but we weren't really evaluating the offers as part of this process.
We were not evaluating the offers on that process. Okay, let's open it up to questions. Fred.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Thank you very much. I have a couple of, I'm not sure if they're questions, statements, or comments, so bear with me. But my first concern, and I say a concern or a question, is that we sent out an LOI requesting people's interest or developers' interest on this property back in October. In October of 2019, prior to the COVID-19, the economy was booming. The economy was, wages were growing, people were spending, the economy was really absolutely on an upswing and growing. And so I'd like your comment or your a comment on why do you think on a piece of property that is 93 acres with, I don't know what the frontage is, but 215 freeway frontage, a big portion of it is freeway frontage, a really prime piece of property in our community. Why do you think we only got, I'm concerned and kind of astounded, frankly, that we only got three, whatever you're going to call them, interested parties. I find that just difficult to believe that there weren't more interested parties. So do you have any comment on why we may have only received three interested parties on a property like this that most people in the booming economy would be jumping on at $3.5 million or whatever it is? And one of the proponents or one of the people that have submitted proposals have offered 1.5 million. Yeah. We went from 6.3 or 6.5 to 3.3. Now it's 1.3, and yet that's not a real number. And as the mayor just commented, he's aware of someone that was offering 4 point something. The numbers are just kind of skewed, and I'm just curious to know as what your thoughts, Mike, on why we only received 3 proposals.
I think there's a couple factors, to be honest, and I think the first factor is the property is somewhat challenged. Anytime you start bringing in environmental factors like the kangaroo rat or the fact that part of the site's within a flood control channel, I think that will dissuade some people because they don't want to go through the long environmental process. That's possibly one factor. I think, this is the property zoned for low density residential development. I'm sure that might have dissuaded some people. from looking at the property, maybe them thinking that we would be considering something higher density to make a project pencil out, or, you know, again, the property is zoned low density residential. That would have prevented commercial developers from looking at it, although we do have one who did submit, and that's the warehouse development entity, and that's about as much as I can offer up.
Well, and I thank you for that, Mike. And by the way, I want to first thank you and your staff for going through this process and putting in the work necessary to look at this project. But this is a property that we've been looking at for a long time. There's been a lot of interest in it, and to only get 3, I accept your speculation on why, though I don't particularly agree. I can't believe that in our location that there weren't a lot of people looking at this. The other comment I would like to ask, and you kind of answered it, and yet it was kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy, I think. What in your evaluation really led you to believe that SA Marina, who I don't know much about, I've looked into them, what in your estimation led you to believe that they were the absolute best to actually proceed and fulfill this and complete this project?
Sure. I think and that's a fair question. I know that it is identified under the results section staff report, but let me go a little bit deeper for you if that would help.
Well, when you say under the results, I've read that. And
correct.
I guess I have to ask, where did that information come from? Did they provide that to us? And have we got backup for that?
Well, let me, like I shared as part of the presentation, there are 2 parts to it. One is the packet that they submitted to us. The other part was the interview itself. And the interview itself really for SA Marina really shared a lot of, I think, really in-depth information. As I've mentioned before, this is a challenge site. You kind of wonder why in the past people haven't built on it. And you've indicated that there's been a lot of interest there. We know that it is a challenge piece of property. But when we were discussing the kinds of analysis and work that the design professionals have done who are part of the SA Marina team, a lot of them have been working on the property in different forms and fashions under different development entities over the last 20 to 30 years. And a lot of that, they've done so much analysis that they know what's subsurface, they know what the geologic issues are with the property, they know the site topography, they know the environmental issues. There's been so much analysis done based on what they've shared on the property that to us, meaning the interview panel, we felt that the design professionals that they were bringing on board could really, because they have so much experience on the site and surrounding property, they could really move a project forward and actually be able to design something around all the parameters that are on the property today. And the other 2 companies weren't able to share that kind of information and have that much backing to be able to substantiate their understanding of the site and the development challenges.
So they weren't able, so they just, they told you or your panel that we know about this property and we've done all this and we've been involved for 30 years or 25 years. I'm sorry, can't quite accept. Is there backup to their claims? I'm not disparaging SA Marina at all, but are there backups to their claims? And have they shown the ability to control the other properties? Have they really done? I know the parties to their team, and individually each of those organizations have worked on major projects and done it, but have SA Marina as an entity, have they ever did they show any performance levels of being able to take on a project this large?
Well, I mean, I would say based on, they have brought the team in, which is the design professionals, to get them through the process, right? I mean, part of, you have development entities, but they're only as good as the design professionals that they have. The people you hire can either move a project forward or can delay it based on their lack of experience. And most of the companies that have been identified as part of their proposal many are local and have done many projects in the area. So we felt pretty confident about
Has that entity done as this team? In other words, to use a baseball analogy, the team, have they played together? Have they done it together? Because they may be good on their own, or they may have contributed in the past to other teams, but have they done this on their own as an entity? Did they back up?
Yeah. So what I can convey to you is that, and to the council, is that this group is being hired by SA Marina, and they are the developer and the money person for this. And they've brought aboard these design professionals, just like any other development entity would. So if you're asking, has the whole group worked together? I'll say a lot of the design professionals in this I know have worked together, but has SA specifically worked with them? I couldn't answer that tonight.
All right. Well,
okay.
Thank you,
All right.
Mike.
Let's move on to Councilman Nickel. You had some questions, sir. It's your ward, so go ahead.
Yeah, well, my biggest concern is we're right in the
Fred
middle.
and Jim, if you guys could help us with muting your lines, that would help on the background. Thank you.
Yeah, if you guys could
go ahead, Henry.
Where are we at? How does this dovetail with our general plan process? Obviously, there's a lot of updates or a lot of work we're going to do on the general plan. Should we perhaps give this decision a little time until we've really got a better understanding? That's the feedback I'm getting from the residents up there. They really want to make sure that when we pull the trigger on a major decision like this, we're confident that we've got ourselves in a good general plan that we can feel confident in. Are we at that point, Mike? What is your professional opinion in terms of whether or not this might be a bit premature? Maybe we want to give this some time, maybe continue this item until we have some better clarity on where we're going in terms of our general plan update for the city.
Yeah. Councilman Nichols, I mean, we heard some of the public orals tonight, and some of the public orals were for some of your constituents who live up in the Vermont area. And, to answer your question, I guess really at this point is that we're looking at individuals who are interested in buying this property. But at the end of the day, is the development code in such a position where it can clearly, where the type of development that will come in would be consistent with the long-term vision of council, but also the Vermont area itself. And I know you and I have had a little bit of discussion in regards to, master planning or doing specific plans. I think that might be something worth looking at as part of our general plan update. So in regards to the general plan update, the RFP is out on the street. We had our pre-submittal conference call this week with all the planning and environmental professionals. We do anticipate getting those proposals in. I'd probably say by the middle of the year, would execute a contract. I think really maybe stepping back at this point is a good idea, and clearly understanding what best will work. Because if you look at all three proposals, you have one that is just strictly industrial, like that's the logistics component. We have one that includes residential, some commercial, some industrial, and then you have another one who's kind of got another mixed bag, and then as I've shared, we would have to go, or they'd have to submit a zone change and general plan amendment to make it work. So they're going to have to spend additional funding on the entitlements. But
that's sort of the key to my question, is that might we get a better price for this, and might we end up with a better outcome on this property if we allow ourselves a little bit more time, and maybe even work with some of these individuals in the context of the general plan, so that we can address some of these rezoning issues in the context of the general plan update, maybe get a better price for the property. I'm just thinking there might be some costs that they're factoring in because we don't have a good updated general plan, because we don't have a specific plan.
Okay, I think that's a good assessment. I know that one of the individuals who owns the other side of the development team for SA Marina owns a lot of the other property up there. And I think that individual would most likely would participate with the city in any update that goes on up there too. Then the other factor too is if we get something that's more palatable for the community up there, there's less chance of people fighting, challenging the NEIR on a project or challenging the project. So I think getting that buy-off is we get a lot more support if we get buy from the community, if they participate in the long-term vision for the Vermont area. So,
Henry, is that a motion? Do you have a motion?
Well, I'm just thinking this might be a bit premature to move on this on any LOI tonight. I think we need to we probably need to get our general plan further along before we consider selling this property.
Yeah, I agree with you, Henry.
Yeah, if there's a motion I need to make to that effect.
Okay, Henry, that's a motion with a second by Basine.
Yep.
And also, Mr. Huntley, I don't want to, I said it in passing, but I want to emphasize the city council has a fiduciary responsibility here. We're not really emphasizing the value of the property. And I really would strongly encourage folks to consider the value of the property versus the contemplated offers on the property, whether it's by these three individuals or anybody. If in fact we're all apprehensive and concerned about filling gaps and reserves as the council is intimating and suggesting, then council, you guys need a lead here, because you're not voicing your opinion. It's just glossing over your heads, and no one is saying anything about the price, the value of the price here. We just understood from Mr. Huntley that the value of the price is 6.1 on the books, and with mitigated efforts, it's now down at 3.3.
Mayor,
we have individuals. Hold on, Fred.
I take exception. That's not going over our head. That's not a go over.
Okay, well, that's fine. You don't have the floor. You need to be quiet, Fred. Thanks. So the bottom line is the opportunity for us to lead economically is to direct staff to also make sure that the price is consistent with the desires of the community, whether that's general plan, whether that's consistent with the modeling of projected use for that area and the sentiments of the constituents. But I think it's incumbent upon us as a fiduciary to make sure that that price is also met and satisfied. Right now, we have that opportunity. So let's open it up to further questions. Mr. Mulvihill, go ahead.
Mr. Huntley, when I looked at this, and not looking at necessarily the scoring, I would have scored the CFR homes, the watermark homes, really highest, because what they're proposing is basically what's in that area already. And I think the comments that the public made at the beginning of this session reflected that as well. And I'm looking at the letter that was from GFR Homes Watermark from Mr. Pavlak. Watermark principals have been interested in the project since 1987. In fact, it was under contract with the city of San Bernardino to purchase the property back in 2005. We have had considerable time and money invested in the previous due diligence. So, it sounds as though they've done a lot of research already in this. I mean, I'm not quite sure how they answered the questions, but it seems to me that they do have a background in this, and GFR Homes, we're familiar with them because they built, 500 homes in the city of San Bernardino, and so forth. And as they say, many of the challenges facing development of this property have been successfully overcome in projects previously developed and so forth, but not limited to the flood control requirements. So I'm just kind of puzzled why it was scored so low. because again, there are a group of people, the watermark people are, have been in the area for quite some time, the Robertson concrete operation and so forth. It seems that they do have a long experience in this area. So I was just kind of puzzled why they were scored so low. I guess you don't have to answer that because, obviously whoever the group was that scored it, it seems that they put down that as lower. But also, I guess one of my questions, I'm not quite sure I can get back to the beginning. The one that was selected, which is what's the name of that?
I say Marina.
The Bella Vista Pacific Plan. That is not just this area, is it? It's a broader area, isn't it? The Bella Vista Pacific Plan. The Bella Vista Plan is not just this property, is it?
Oh, no. So the development entity you're talking about actually, beginning of 2018, had started working with the owner of the surrounding properties, Mr. Gordon.
Is that the Bella Vista people?
Yeah, and actually we're working together doing community outreach in the Vermont area, getting feedback from them. So they started reaching out to the community, the first part of 2018, and started the process to create a specific plan that would not only include their property, but the city's property, which is the Bice property, and some of the other properties as well. So they were looking at it from a little bit larger global perspective.
Yeah, and so the discussion that they have here, and I'm trying to get back to it, what they're proposing is something like 1,940 residential units. When I looked at this, I thought, it's got 93 acres. And they're talking about 1,940 residential units, and so it's going to have commercial, industrial, and there's a lot there that they're not including in terms of what they're talking about with regard to this Bice property. And so I'd like to kind of, with their specific plan, what they have planned for this property, not what they have, this whole Bella Vista. It seems like what they're talking about. On the other hand, the watermark GFR seems to be specifically addressing this property with the 500 residential units and the camping fish, soccer fields, and so forth. So I guess, my point is, I think that, your group's done a really good job examining these things, but it's just a couple things, and I just described them, puzzled me as to why that was scored so low. Because what the watermark GFR are talking about is basically what's been in the general plan and what's there already, and what Marina is proposing is something that's not really the property itself, but really what's going to be built around it. And again, it was so again, you answered the question that in fact the Bella Vista specific plan really doesn't deal necessarily with this property. And I guess, is that plan, is it part of the county? There's a lot of county property. Is it part of the city? I mean, have we approved that specific plan?
No, this is just their proposal. Okay. They were considering creating a specific plan, which is a master development tool, that would include not only the properties, and if you look at your packet under SA Marina, it actually includes the map that shows our property and then the surrounding property owner one in green. Yeah. And what their intent was is to do master planning, but not just for those, but they were, considering going wider and much broader part of this area because of all the site constraints and area constraints. So
yeah, well, I guess the motion's been made, and I think they're going to be voted along with Councilman Charette and
Nichols,
Councilman Nichols on this one, because also they're only offering $1.5 million for the property, and that just seems to be a real lowball for it. So, thank you.
Wow, that's a good observation, Jim. Councilmember Ibarra.
Good afternoon, Mr. Huntley. Thank you for your presentation. I will echo what some of my colleagues have voiced regarding the SA Marina. I myself tried to look them up online to get an idea of what kind of projects they've done. I couldn't find them. However, I'm seeing on the packet, page 58, those, and just to confirm, those are the projects that GFR/Watermark have done within our city, correct?
And surrounding cities also, yes.
Correct. And these are nice projects. Also, we had a constituent who lives around that area, and I've been in that neighborhood. Those are nice houses. What I'm seeing most is University Heights being more of what's already there. What did they offer for that property?
So who offer for the price? Saying
The
SA Marina?
No, not SA Marina, the Watermark.
I don't think there was
GFR.
I don't think there was any price offered based on my recollection. I think it was SA Marina who threw a number at us. So.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I will definitely echo what they already said. Definitely look at the property value, kangaroo rat, flood control, if they can find a way to go around it. My concern also by looking at the location, and we can refer page 72 of the agenda packet. In that whole area, there's not many exits to the freeway. So if there were ever to be a flood or a fire, who is going to mitigate those emergency exits for the people who live in that area?
That's all part of the city's review of a project. And that goes back to every project. And I'll just say this property would probably require an environmental impact report. And as part of that, we always look at traffic and circulation and the impacts that might be caused by a project. So as it deals with this particular site, there'd be a traffic study done. There'd probably be some kind of mitigation measures. I can't speculate on what those might be. Some of those might be, maybe them paying their fair share for on and off ramp improvements, from a cumulative component with all the other projects as an example. So every project is solely looked at and evaluated based on its impacts. There could be mitigations for traffic and circulation. It could be for habitat for the kangaroo rat. There could be some mitigation measures for issues with flooding, with earthquakes, and a wide variety of things. So every product has to be fully vetted before it gets approved or presented to the city council.
And when they look at all that, I'm assuming they're going to bring their pricing lower, perhaps when they look at of how much they want to pay for that property.
And that'd be typically part of their due diligence phase of them buying the property. Like I've indicated, the property is challenged. There's some issues that have to be looked at. So, with any prospective buyer, would have to take a look at that. We could also look at some of those components as part of as we update the general plan, and potentially do a specific plan in this area. The specific plan could identify a lot of those same issues and then come up with a master development plan for the area.
Okay, thank you. That is all for me.
Okay,
Mayor.
very good, thanks. Any other council members? Any other council members? All right, there's a motion and a second, and
Can we clarify the
let's
motion?
go. Yeah, the city clerk, if you could read the motion, please.
Okay, so the motion was made by Councilmember Nichols, second by Councilmember Richard, and it was to postpone the item until the general plan has been updated, and then it would be revisited at that time. Is there any objection to the motion? Hello?
There's an objection by Councilmember Barra. She's raising her hand as an objector.
No, I'm not objecting. I fully support the motion.
Okay, great. Thanks. All right, thanks. Any objections? None? Okay, you have council direction. General plan update could take several years, but another missed wind opportunity here on economic recovery for the city, but that's the direction of the council. Okay, item number 3, resolution authorizing submittal of an application for permanent local housing allocation funds, and this is Miss City Manager.
I move we approve.
Yeah, we have Maria Gallegos here to give the report.
Second.
Ready? You're Gretel.
Why don't we go with a abbreviated staff report on this? This is an important item. This is a success for the city. So.
Okay.
Be Gretel, housing manager.
Honorable Mayor and City Council members, before you tonight for consideration and adoption is a resolution authorizing submittal of an application to the California State Department of Housing and Community Development for the Permanent Local Housing Allocation Program, or PLHA. PLHA is funded by Senate Bill 2, which imposed the $75 fee on recordation of certain real estate transaction documents. And the bill designated 70% of the monies collected for a trust fund in order to provide permanent funding sources to local governments. The City of San Bernardino's first year allocation is $1.6 million. If you approve submittal of the application, the city could receive allocations for a 5-year period, and the 5-year allocation is estimated $9.7 million. As noted in the staff report, there are 5 housing activities that can be undertaken. And what is really attractive about PLHA is that within the framework of the 5 activities, a local government can choose how to proceed with those activities and to meet the unique needs of their community. So if you have, that concludes my report. So if you have any questions, I can answer them.
Okay, very good. We have a motion for approval, and is there a second?
I believe Councilmember Richard had seconded that motion.
I seconded it, yes.
Okay, very good. All right, and if you would, if there's no objections, let's go ahead and state your objections. Any objections? If not, there's consensus and unanimous approval on it. Okay, moving on to item number 4, introduction and first reading of ordinance MC 1535 pertaining to the use of fireworks within the city limits. Ms. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Captain Pellis is here to give this report for you. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and members of council. The item before you today is the introduction and first reading of ordinance MC 1535. As a brief background, in July of 2019, the council gave direction to the Legislative Review Committee to consider increasing the fines and penalties for unlawful fireworks violations in the city. In September, the LRC met and by a majority vote decided to give direction to staff to prepare a report for consideration by the full council to increase penalties for fireworks violations, and as well to consider establishing a reward fund that would provide a $250 reward for the successful prosecution and identification of any individual violating the city codes related to fireworks. At the November 6, 2019 meeting, we provided a staff report to you regarding our research on this topic. In preparation for that presentation, we surveyed the County of San Bernardino, the City of Riverside, and 23 incorporated cities within the County of San Bernardino to make an assessment as to the standard for penalties for fireworks violations in the region. What we found is that from the criminal context, the City of San Bernardino is on par with other jurisdictions in the region. Essentially, safe and sane fireworks penalties on the criminal side can be punished by an infraction or a misdemeanor, and any dangerous fireworks will be punished by a misdemeanor violation of California law. So our recommendation during the November meeting was to keep the criminal penalties as is, because we are, again, on par with other cities and the county in the region. However, when it comes to administrative civil penalties, the City of San Bernardino was quite low in comparison to many jurisdictions. During our survey, we discovered that the cities of Fontana and Grand Terrace imposed the highest civil penalties for fireworks violations. For the first violation of a dangerous fireworks ordinance, the amount was actually $2,500. For the second violation, $5,000, and for the third violation within a single year, $10,000. By comparison, the City of San Bernardino maximum fine for any fireworks violation, including those dangerous fireworks, is only $1,000, and it's that same level of penalty regardless of how many violations occur within 1 year. During our survey, the city of Montclair stood out as having the highest penalty for the safe and sane fireworks. And those penalties were $1,000 for the first offense, $2,500 for the second offense within 36 months, and $5,000 for the third offense within 36 months. Based on our survey and the direction from the Legislative Review Committee, staff recommended to you at the November meeting to impose the highest penalties available in the region for both the safe and sane fireworks and the dangerous fireworks. The council voted unanimously to accept the staff recommendations on those enhanced penalties, as well as the establishment of the reward fund in the amount of $250 per successful prosecution regarding any fireworks violations. In addition to that, we also are recommending in this draft ordinance not only the change to the codes regarding the penalties for fireworks violations, but the change to Chapter 9.93, which currently restricts any administrative civil penalty in the city to a maximum of $1,000 per violation. So in order to increase the penalties under Chapters 8.60 and 8.61 for fireworks, we also need to amend that Chapter 9.93 to allow us to do so. With regard to the specific amendments, we're looking at several chapters and sections of the municipal code. I'll get into them if you'd like, but they're available for you in your backup to the agenda for this evening's meeting. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have regarding this agenda item.
Brian, this is a great item. I think it's a big no-brainer for our community. The citizens of our community have really asked and requested that. I appreciate our police department for providing some of those recommendations to LRC. This is a long time waiting, folks. We need a big stick in our community, and this is the opportunity. Again, no brainer, but we'll open it up for final comments or questions. And Mr. Nickel.
I just want to move to approve. Great job.
Great. Is there a second? Fred?
I
Great.
second it.
All right. Okay, let's, if there's no objections, or Councilmember Barr, you have a comment?
Yes, just one real quick comment. I remember back in a November meeting, we also discussed about possibly banning fireworks all in general. I'm not sure if that's gonna come before us in the near future, but I'm in favor of these fines.
Okay, great. If you have a separate item, then go ahead and recommend that at a different time. But we're voting tonight on the issue of what's agendized. So thank you, Council Member. Is there any other comments?
May I have to read the title of the ordinance?
Okay, hold on, Ms. City Clerk. Mr. Figueroa, go ahead.
Thank you. I still maintain my position that all fireworks should be banned throughout the city. But that being said, if the city council is going to continue moving forward, I would recommend in the future to start considering environmentally friendly fireworks to be considered as well. However, that being said, I do maintain my position that fireworks should be banned across the whole city, but I do support the penalties that we're discussing here tonight.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And any other city councilman, Mr. Mulvihill?
Yes, from my point of view, the penalties, the size of the penalties really don't make a great deal of difference to enforcement. We have had penalties like this before, but if they're not enforced, it's not worthwhile. So the point is, if we're going to pass this, if we're serious about it, then they need to be enforced. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. City Clerk, you were saying?
That I need to read the title of the ordinance before a vote is taken. So the title is Ordinance of the Mayor and City Council of the City of San Bernardino, California, amending Chapters 8.60 and 8.61 of Title 8 and Chapter 9.93 of Title 9 of the San Bernardino Municipal Code pertaining to the use of fireworks within city limits.
Okay, let's do a roll call vote on this, please. Ms. City Clerk, if you call the roll.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem Sanchez?
Yes.
Councilmember Ibarra?
Yes.
Councilmember Figueroa?
Yes.
Councilmember Shura?
Yes.
Councilmember Nickel?
Yes.
Councilmember Richard?
Yes.
And Councilmember Mulvihill?
Yes.
Okay, the item passes 7-0.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Ms. City Clerk. And moving on to item number 5. Item number 5 is a budget amendment for the Office of the Mayor and City Manager Ordinance. Ms. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. As council likely recalls, back on March 18th of this year, I was directed to bring forward a budget amendment to transfer funding for all of the full-time and part-time staff in the mayor's office, with the exception of the mayor and the office of the city manager. The transfer of staff from the mayor's office to the office of the city manager requires a budget amendment in addition to an evaluation of the scope of the responsibility assigned to the staff and their existing job classifications in relation to the operational needs of the city manager's office. The budget amendment presented this evening is the first of a two-step process. The adopted 1920 operating budget for the mayor's office includes 4 full-time positions in addition to funding for part-time personnel. As directed by the city council, presented for adoption, transfer 3 of the 4 positions from the mayor's office, as well as the remaining funding for the part-time personnel. Those positions include the mayor's chief of staff, the assistant to the mayor, the senior customer service representative, and then the part-time $52,000, which is currently the executive assistant position funding would stay in the mayor's office. The second step associated with the transfer of personnel from the city manager's office will require an assessment of each job classification considered in combination with the operational needs of the office, mine office. The staffing structure in the city manager's office will be addressed as part of the 2021 budget process. In addition to the direction provided in March regarding this matter, the city council also first to assign the city manager responsibility for and oversight, support staff, and the offices of the city council, the mayor, and the city attorney. Currently, Section 502 of the city charter assigns responsibility to the city manager for the administration of city departments, excluding the offices of the city council, mayor, city attorney, and city clerk. Section 502 further states that with the consent of the council, the city manager may serve as the executive of one or more of those offices. This action to transfer this responsibility is accomplished by amending Chapter 2.02 of the city's municipal code to ordinance number 1534, which is before you this evening. If approved, the city council will change this into effect 30 days after the second reading of the ordinance. The fiscal impact from its effective date of 16 is $65,417. The mayor's budget will be reduced and the city manager's office will be increased by the same amount. So this evening, we are recommending that you amend the 1920 adopted budget to transfer the chief of staff, assistant to the mayor, senior customer service representative, and part-time personnel from the office of the mayor to the office of the city manager effective April 16th, and adopt ordinance number 1534, amending of the municipal code to assign administrative responsibility for the council and city attorney. Happy to answer.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. City Manager. There's been a request by a council member to separate both items. So if there's no objections, we're going to separate according to the floor motion. There's 2 items, 2 recommendations. Is there a motion for approval on item number 1 of item 5?
I move to approve both.
I have a question.
Okay, well, Mr. Sanchez, there's been a recommendation to split the both, so let's go ahead and help your council members. If we'd like to separate that, out of courtesy, Ted, do you think you can help your council member?
Who's requested that?
Councilman Figueroa, do you want to?
Yeah, I would like to make a motion to separate
the items.
The items.
Okay, very
of the
good.
budget and
For a second to separate that.
If you would like to, I will support that.
Okay. So that's a motion. Is there any objections to separating it? I see none. So we'll separate the items, please. Item number 1, there's a motion for approval by Councilman Sanchez. Is there a second for item number 1?
No, but I have a question.
Councilmember Nickel on the second. Are there any objections to the floor motion of item number 1 in section 5 or item 5?
I have
Any
a question,
objections?
Mayor.
Go ahead, Ms. Barham.
My question, if we look at the agenda packet, page 123, the fiscal impact, right now we're just looking at the executive assistant to the mayor. Is that correct, the city manager? Because the mayor's budget will be reduced by 65,417, and the city managers will be increased. Or is that the remaining budget that we have for the chief of staff, the part-time field rep, and the executive assistant? Can you clarify?
That's correct. From April 16th till the end of the fiscal year, June 30th.
Okay. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And is there any objections to that floor motion with a second? Seeing none, it is ordered and so approved. Item number 2 is the introduction of read by title only, as seen there. And are there any questions, comments on item number 2 of item 5? Mr. Nickel.
Yeah, I just have a question. In the context of the charter, that the council already has the power at any time to delegate to whoever it deems appropriate the management of its staff. Why do we have to do this as an ordinance? What is the, you know, I've heard criticisms that we do far too much as ordinances that are really quite costly. And since the council already has that power under the charter, couldn't we just do this as a minute order? So in other words, we vote and we say the city manager will be responsible for our staff until such time as we determine a different structure. Why an ordinance? Why is the ordinance essential to this, and why does it have to be hard-coded into the municipal code when it's already in the charter that the council has this power and this authority?
This is the mechanism by which me and your legal counsel are recommending that you take this action to give the city manager responsibility instead of minute motion. Maybe Sonia wants to speak to that. I would be more comfortable by doing it by ordinance than by minute motion. It makes it more official.
What does an ordinance cost us in terms of staff time, in terms of legal? This is the criticism I get, is that ordinances are costly. They cost us money.
And Henry, I agree with you, and I don't know. I agree with you completely, Henry.
Well, the work is already done. The ordinance is drafted. Maybe Sonia wants to speak to this.
Yeah, I can comment on this to address the issue of the time spent on this. As you may recall, all of the general day-to-day work for the city, whether you ask us to draft one ordinance or 25 ordinances, all falls in within the retainer that you have established. So it's not an issue of additional work, and we are able to manage that day-to-day so that there's no additional cost. In terms of the ordinance, I think it has been an issue of just establishing written policy. As you may recall, this council has had previous discussions similar to these issues about your city manager form of government and some of the conflicts that we've pointed out to you in the past of how you still have things in your charter which potentially conflict with that policy of having a city manager form of government. Our advice simply was to memorialize in a document that people could actually touch and look at versus a minute order, which goes into the minutes of city council. And should any of the parties, any of us, for example, not be around in subsequent years, someone might miss that minute order. It's just a matter of policy. So that was why the recommendation was made that you memorialize it in the form of an ordinance.
Well, and the reason I ask it is because I'm okay with Terry being responsible for staff. My concern is when you hard code this in the municipal code, when you hard code this in the context of an ordinance, when the council has already been delegated the authority to make these decisions when it wishes to under the charter, I think we are hog-tying ourselves into a process that's not really necessary. And if and when we may need to adjust, we're going to have to come back and then modify the municipal code. That does take money. Whatever you say, whether it's built into our retainer or not, that's real money that has to be spent and for something that I just don't see the necessity for, since it's already been approved by the voters, that the power already exists with the council. So on the second component, I'm just going to have to abstain. I do not support the use. I think we use ordinances way too much around here. I think it overly complicates our process. especially when the charter specifically says the council already has this power and the voters have already approved it. So I will be abstaining on this.
Okay,
this
thank you,
item.
Henry. We'll note your abstention. Thank you, sir. All right, there's a motion, I think, in a second for item number 2 of item 5. If that's not confusing enough, I apologize. But is there a motion in a second?
No, I have some comments, Mayor.
Go ahead.
Okay, I want my colleagues to please realize what it is that they're doing right now. Per the charter, we have that purview of overseeing our own staff. By us giving that authority and putting our municipal code to the city manager, it takes that right away from us as council members and having our own staff. There's supposed to be a separation of our staff from our city manager's overview. Now, with that said, I don't know who here right now with the current charter, any department head or any staff member I contact within the city, I have to CC or let our city manager know. I personally would not want to come talk to to our council staff and say, oh, let me ask for permission and see if that's okay. That to me, that's taking powers away from us as council and having our own staff. Now, I know that some of the concerns that have been raised were who would be overseeing the staff. Our staff is doing a great job of communicating that information with us. If we need to find out what their schedules are, ask them to, as a courtesy, send us a weekly email of what they're doing. And that we know, I will not be supporting this because we are giving up the little power that we have to oversee our own staff as elected officials. It's going to pretty much put another layer before we're able to get something taken care of or handled on our end as council members. I personally will be voting against this, and I hope my colleagues understand what they're doing. As our city manager is the CEO per the city charter, she already oversees a lot of staff on her end, and to add more staff where city attorney, that's an appointed position, city clerk, that's an appointed position, and us elected officials put our staff onto her responsibility, it's further going to limit our rights. So I will be voting against it. I don't know if somebody would like to.
Thank you, Councilmember. We got your no on it. Okay, thank you.
And
Councilman Figueroa.
Yes, and I completely, yes, and I do agree with Councilmember
Fred,
Ibarra.
just a moment, please, Fred. Councilman Figueroa, you got the floor, sir.
Thank you. It'll be quick. I do agree with Councilmember Ibarra on this situation. Transferring it over to the city manager's office is just creating an intermediary for the council. It decreases the council's authority to be able to do many of the things that Councilmember Ibarra already alluded to. So I will be voting alongside her recommendation as well.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Figueroa. Councilman Charette.
Yeah, I agree with Henry. It doesn't need to be done by ordinance. I do support the idea that our staff cannot answer to 7 bosses. And I don't have a problem with putting the staff under her responsibility, in this case, her. Next time it might be a him. But in this case, under Terry's responsibility to do tabs and what have you. You can't have 7 bosses. That's one of the reasons we changed the charter in the beginning, for the reasons we changed it. So I don't have a problem with that. I don't think any city manager, the city manager works for us. So if the city manager starts taking charge of our staff and we're not happy with it, we can band together and change that real quickly. It's called firing the city manager for not carrying out our
how's that going?
Edicts. So and that's not a threat. That's a fact. The city manager works for us. But I would like to trust the city manager that's able to oversee our staff and provide, as the charter requires and dictates, that she provides us with the resources we need to carry out our duties and our job. So I have no problem with the staff being under the city manager. I do think it's important that for the staff's sake, that they have essentially one boss or one person to answer to. So I support it. I don't understand the idea of an ordinance, but I do support.
Okay, thank you, Fred. All right, final. I think we have a motion and a second to
Mayor, I had a
support the floor
comment.
motion.
I had a comment.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I just want to say that I truly agree with Fred and Henry to the fact that this should not be an ordinance. But I'm going to lend my support and my vote to Councilmember Figueroa and Ibarra. I just feel like we don't need to give up our power. We don't need to throw our staff onto our city manager when she already has enough on her hand and on her plate. So I'm going to also vote no on this.
All right, that's not an issue.
Okay, Councilmember.
Too much
Hold on, Fred. Hold on. I think we're here to vote, guys. Let's go ahead and cast your votes. And let's go ahead and, yes, ma'am.
If I can please read the title of the ordinance.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so an ordinance of the mayor and the city council of the city of San Bernardino, California, amending section 2.02.060 of chapter 2.02 of the title 2 of the San Bernardino Municipal Code pertaining to the duties of the city manager, and it is ordinance number 1534.
And who made the motion? Who made the motion? The second?
I was going to ask for clarification on that because I did not hear.
Oh, okay. Fred, did you?
I will. I didn't, but I will. I'll move it.
Okay, go ahead. Is there a second to Fred?
I'll second.
Ted? Okay, perfect.
Yes.
So that's the floor motion. And if you call the vote, roll, please.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem Sanchez?
Yes.
Councilmember Ibarra?
No.
Councilmember Figueroa?
No.
Councilmember Charette?
Yes.
Councilmember Nickel?
I'm abstaining.
Councilmember Richard?
No.
Okay, and Councilmember Mulvihill?
Yes.
Sorry, was that a yes?
Yes.
So we have 3 yeses, 3 noes, and 1 abstention.
In that case, I would like to continue to discuss this matter. It's of utmost importance. I do think that the outcome would be very different if
I would like to make a motion. I would just like to,
let me, if I may finish, I would like to amend it to exclude the council staff, but continue to include the city clerk staff as well as the mayor staff. Will anyone second that motion?
We had decided the city clerk is not involved because you haven't appointed.
Sorry, not the city clerk, the city attorney, I mean.
Okay.
Can we, so that is the motion I make.
I would like to put forward a substitute motion that by minute order, we as the council appoint Terry Ledoux to be responsible for the city council staff, and that she will continue in that capacity until such time as the council determines different.
I'll support that, Henry, with one caveat, and that is that we don't put an individual's name in it, that we make it the city manager, not.
That's fine. I'm fine with that. That's my substitute motion.
I second that with that.
Okay, Ms. City Attorney, there's a legal complexity here. We've already called for the question, and now there's a substitute motion. Should we rescind the previous action and then entertain Councilman Nichols' motion?
No, because based on and the city clerk can correct me, but the Mr. Mayor Pro Tem Sanchez's first motion did not have a second.
Correct.
At least the altered. So really the motion that's on the floor is the one that Council Member Nickel has offered, according to my notes.
Wait, Councilman hold on. Councilman Sanchez never offered it. It was Fred and Jim, I think, that moved the floor motion.
No.
You had a motion, you voted, it was 3-3-1.
Yeah, Ms. City Clerk, who was the motion maker on the original floor motion?
I'll second Mayor Pro Tem, by the way. Just exclude the council staff.
Ms. City Clerk, can you please All right.
Yes, so for the original motion, it was Councilmember Charette, second by Mayor Pro Tem Sanchez.
Okay,
That motion,
great.
and then Mayor Pro Tem Sanchez made a substitute motion to exclude the city council staff, and that did not receive a second.
Okay, and now we have the substitute motion by Councilman Nickel on his motion. Can you read the motion by Councilman Nickel?
Councilman Nickel proposed that this item be approved by minute order, that the city manager would oversee the staff in the mayor and council's office.
No, of city council, right, Mr. Nickel?
City council.
I'm sorry,
yes.
city
Correct.
council.
I believe the council member from the second ward seconded my motion, which came subsequent.
So,
I have a substitute motion.
hold on, Ted, you're out of order. Hold on. Nickel, you have a floor motion, and you have a second by someone. Who's that second by?
Me.
By Fred.
Mayor, Mayor, if
The
I may,
clerk will, yes, go ahead.
does that include the city attorney's office? Because that's probably the most important one, because we have a contract.
I'm sorry.
I will include the city attorney's office. I will include the city attorney's office in my motion.
Does Mr. Charette agree with that amendment?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so now you have a valid motion on the floor, which is to approve by minute order the city manager overseeing, supervising the staff for the city council and the city attorney. That's the motion. That's on the floor.
And the motion is second, if clerk would call the roll.
Does not include.
Well, I would still like my substitute motion to be voted on. I believe the council member from the second ward seconded my motion subsequent to Henry Nichols' floor motion. So I would still like to
Okay, well, the chair doesn't recognize your motion, Mr. Sanchez.
So
go
now-
ahead, city
now
clerk, and
recognize
let's
the
go
motion.
ahead
No,
and
no.
call the roll on the substitute
How is that-
motion.
how
The
is
clerk
that
will
right?
call the
How
roll.
is that fair?
Mr.
No.
Sanchez, you're out of order,
I make an
sir.
appeal-
Go ahead.
No, I make
Go
a
ahead,
motion
Mr.
Mayor Pro
Clerk.
Tem Sanchez. Mayor Pro Tem Sanchez.
Yes, yes.
Councilmember Ibarra.
No.
Councilmember Figueroa.
No.
Councilmember Charette.
Yes.
Okay, Councilmember Nickel.
Yes.
Councilmember Richard.
No.
Okay, and Councilmember Mulvihill.
Yes.
The motion passes 4-3.
Mayor, for the record, can you please read the motion of the offices that are involved?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
For the record, city clerk, would you please read back the motion so I'll know which offices are involved?
Approved by minute order, that would be the office of the city council and this city attorney.
And not the mayor's office? I just want to make sure they know what they voted on.
That's correct. That was their motion.
No, it should include the mayor's office.
Well, that wasn't part of the motion, Mr. Nickel.
If some,
Well, no, I need legal counsel on this. So I
So,
my
Mr.
motion. I made a motion.
Hold on,
no, no,
Mr.
you can,
Sanchez.
no, I'm not going to hold on. I made
Mr.
a
Nickel.
motion, and that motion was seconded.
Mr.
I
Sanchez.
seconded his motion,
Mayor
you
Pro
guys.
Tem, sir, you're out of order. Just a minute.
You're out
Yeah,
of
we're
order.
trying to.
You're out of order.
Your
No,
code of
you are out of
conduct,
order.
Mr. Sanchez. Mayor Pro Tem, you're going to
No,
need to
you
cool and
allowed
relax
me to
yourself.
ignore my motion that
Mr.
was duly
Nickel,
seconded.
Mr. Nickel is
And this is just being
recognized.
ignored
Sir,
by all the
we've
other members of the
clarified.
council?
We've clarified. Mr.
Is this
Sanchez,
right?
please.
I would like
No,
the city attorney to
you're
point
not
this
right.
out.
Mr. Sanchez, you're out of order, sir. Just a moment. Mr. Nickel, we've clarified this twice, that you had suggested it's city attorney and city council.
The
The
mayor's
motion has
included in there.
technically fallen.
may I offer a suggestion? If the city council would like to address the issue of the mayor, it can do so by a separate motion.
Separate motion. Anybody can bring that motion. Anybody
You
can
do
bring
not
it.
need to go
At a
back.
later time.
Exactly. Thank you, Councilmember Nickel, because that would be the most efficient way to have that conversation. So if there's a desire, and Mayor Pro Tem will want to put that item on the floor, he may make a motion to that effect, or any council member.
And he can do that when we call on him on items to be referred to committee, or he can agendize that during the appropriate
No,
section.
this
Mr.
item was
Sanchez,
being discussed.
we're not trying.
And I made a motion, and that motion was seconded, and you ignored it, and we did not take a vote. How is
It's
that
the
allowed?
prerogative of the chair. It's
It is
prerogative of the
not
chair,
the
Mr.
prerogative of the
Sanchez.
chair to ignore.
You're
a
absolutely
motion
wrong. It's
that
the
is
prerogative of the chair.
It
You're
is
not
not.
recognized, sir.
It is
May
not.
make a motion
So
to
we've given you a solution to to your quandary and your issue, Mr. Sanchez. I know that you're really apprehensive about the mayor's office, which you really should be concerned about your council
I
district.
am, because of what
and
is
getting
going on right
economic
now in the
development
mayor's
back
office.
into your
That's why.
district, sir. That's fine. But you know what? You should worry about your district and potholes and street lights and tree trimming.
I'm worried about
There's a
my
lot of
city.
concerns, and your ward is out of control. So we'll get back onto the issue tonight. The motion has failed. We'll move on to item number 5 or 6. And with that, I will be leaving the meeting. Mr. Sanchez, it's your meeting on item 6.
All right, so item number 6. If we can get the staff report on item number 6, please.
I move that we reject providing legal representation for the mayor.
I will second that.
I just want to know, I just have a question. I just want to know why you guys want to do that when we had already talked about this. We talked to the city attorney. We talked to the city attorney about what to do. She brought it back to us, and now all of a sudden there's a rejection. This should not be emotional. This should be based on fact. He has the legal right to have representation. If you guys were all in the same position, you guys will want the same. And some of you guys have been in a certain position, not a position of allegations about sexual, whatever, all the same ones that he was in. But there's certain people here that have been involved and they needed representation and they asked for it. By law, being a city employee, we are obligated to give him representation, whether it be the people that the city attorney brought forward or the city attorney themselves. So we need to think about it, and we need to think about it long and hard. If this is the way I feel tonight,
Point of order.
if this is the way that you guys want it to be, you guys should have said that in closed session. Thank you.
Point of order.
Point of order. You guys just need to think about it. Thank you.
Point of order, and I'd like to direct a question to our city attorney, Mayor Pro Tem, if you allow me.
Go for it.
Ms. City Attorney, Sonia?
Yes.
What does Government Code Section 815.3B say at the very end?
Let me get down there. I haven't memorized those provisions. Looking through the staff report. 815B. Are you talking about 825?
No, 815.3B.
Okay, I'm so sorry. I don't have that section in front of me.
Okay, I'll just summarize it real briefly. Any sexual harassment allegations does not apply to elected officials' duties, or nor corruption allegations. Therefore, under that government code, we should not, and we do not have that obligation to represent him legally.
Well,
and that information was not provided to us.
Mayor Pro Tem, if I may speak to this item, I was going to give a staff report and then a motion was made, so I did not have the opportunity to do that.
Okay. Yes.
I want to
yes.
make sure that the city council also understands the difference in what we're actually voting on this evening. The title of this is a request for legal representation. The issue of whether the city council has a duty to defend is a factual question. It's provided for in the government code. And the question is that right to the duty to defend is not absolute. There are exceptions to that. And we have discussed those exceptions. And some of those exceptions are set forth in your staff report, including whether that individual has been acting within the scope of their employment, including whether the city asked for a reservation of rights agreement, and finally, whether the individual acted with malice or fraud or an intent similar to that. What we're talking about this evening is following up on the city council's direction to the city attorney. You asked that I come and bring back to you in open session a number of names of individuals who you would want to consider. And that's what I've done for you this evening. Clearly, if the city council is not desirous of doing that, then it does not have to do so. And we discussed that. But I do want to make sure that you are focused on the issue that's before you this evening, which is, does the city council desire to select one of these attorneys to represent the mayor or not.
No, and I made my motion that we reject his request for legal representation. He had his right, and we have our right to take a vote on that.
Okay, before we continue on that, I have a point of order. I would like to reconsider my vote on item number 5. I did vote in the affirmative with the majority concerning the staff in the council office and the staff in the city attorney's office. I would like to change my vote to a no and open that back up for discussion. I would like to take Henry's floor motion with the addition that we add the mayor's office. And I would like a vote taken for that. I will make that motion. Do I have a second?
I think I second it, Theodore, but I need some clarification.
I'll second it.
Okay, so I think we have the motion and the second. If we may take a vote on that.
No, I want clarification of the motion.
Okay, yes. If you
well,
all right, what is that?
Okay, so let me just, Mayor Pro Tem, hold on
Yes.
a second, because we were on item number 6, so I'm a little, let's take a deep breath.
Can we wait till we finish item number 6?
Yeah, we need some order here with this.
Yes, I know that it's most appropriate to bring back any sort of reconsideration of any vote taken when the voter with the majority has a change of heart. And right now, I am the chair of this meeting, and I would like for that to be done at this time.
Okay, so what you would need to do, you need to have, it's going to be a 2-step process if you wish to do so. The first would be what you've said. You need to make a motion just to have the vote reconsidered.
Reconsideration.
If you get a majority vote to do that, then you would make a new motion.
Okay, well then I would like that motion for reconsideration.
I'll second.
I'll second.
Okay, shall we take a vote?
And
City
for a
Clerk,
point
please.
of order, just really quick, Mayor Pro Tem Sanchez, I do support your prerogative to be able to do that. However, we're in the middle of, well, not necessarily in the middle, but we're, I guess I'll just say, in the middle of this current item. Can we just conclude this item first and then go back to that reconsideration?
I think there mostly is a consensus on this issue. I don't think it'll take long. It shouldn't disrupt the meeting. I do respect your opinion. I almost agree with you in this case, but I think the council made a grave mistake in not fully addressing the issues on item number 5. So I'd like to take that vote now. If we can please do that. City Clerk, would you call the roll?
This is a vote for reconsideration?
Yes.
Yes, it is. Okay, so Mayor Pro Tem Sanchez?
Yes.
Okay,
Who's the
Councilmember
seconder
Ibarra?
on that?
Yes.
Ibarra. I heard Councilmember Ibarra second the item.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Ibarra?
Yes.
Okay, Councilmember Figueroa?
No.
Councilmember Charette?
No.
Councilmember Nickel?
Yes.
Councilmember Richard?
No.
And Councilmember Mulvihill?
Yes.
The item does not pass. It's 4.
Why not? Oh, geez.
Could we get a call of a tally of the vote again by name? Who voted
Well,
yes?
I think Charette wanted to vote in the affirmative. This was to reconsider that item number 5, right?
Yes.
Yes.
And what was that? Should we do the roll call again?
Can we read the votes? Who voted yes and who voted no?
Mayor Pro Tem Sanchez voted yes. Councilmember Ibarra voted no.
No, she voted
no.
yes.
Yeah,
She
okay.
voted yes.
I voted yes for his reconsideration.
Okay, Councilmember Figueroa voted no.
Okay, I'm going to need some further clarification. Are we voting to allow reconsideration? Is that what the vote is?
Yes.
Okay, well then I'll vote yes.
Councilmember Charette?
I voted no.
Councilmember Nickel voted yes.
Yes.
Okay, Councilmember Richard voted no. And Councilmember Mulvihill voted yes.
Yes.
Okay, so the item passes to be reconsidered.
So I would like to make the motion, the same motion that Councilmember Henry Nickel had made, with the addition that we include the mayor's staff.
I will second.
Call for the question.
Okay. Is there any objection to the item?
I'll be objecting.
I'll be objecting.
Okay, let me do
Recommend
a
to
roll
take a
call.
roll call vote. I would recommend a roll call vote.
Yes. Okay, so Mayor Pro Tem Sanchez,
Yes.
Councilmember Ibarra,
No.
Councilmember Figueroa,
No.
Councilmember Surratt,
Yes.
Councilmember Nickel,
Yes.
Councilmember Richard,
No.
okay, and Councilmember Mulvihill.
Yes.
Okay, the item passes 4-3.
Thank you.
All right, I appreciate that. Let's move back to item number 6. Shall we continue where we left off?
I believe there was a motion and a second.
I think the city attorney was talking.
Yes, I would really like to get the report from the city attorney's office, please.
So once again, I think I was just finishing up on that report, which was the item before you is to determine whether you would like to select legal representation for the mayor. I have provided for you, pursuant to your request, the names of 4 individuals. These individuals have experience in the areas of litigation and labor and employment. Their rates vary from $330 an hour, $250 an hour for some associates, up to $495 an hour. I did receive subsequent information from the ZBAC firm that they would consider a blended rate of $375 an hour if they were to be selected by the city council. And that's the conclusion of my report. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Mayor Pro Tem, may I speak?
Go for it.
This is been something that we've all kind of been interested in and looked at, and it's very high. I don't know what the word to say. High energy. It's very important. The fact of the matter is, and I'll try to put it in what I consider layman's terms from my perspective, is we do have an obligation to provide legal representation in this particular case. We do not, however, have to hire a special or outside attorney or expend any extra money. So my motion would be simply that Mayor Valdivia just gets lumped in with all the rest of us with the, excuse me, the current city attorney providing legal services for all of us, the city, including any employees that are involved, at least for the time being. In other words, we do have to provide legal service and representation, but we do not have to hire a special or more expensive or a separate attorney for that particular employee. So my motion would be simply that we not hire any of the suggested attorneys that are on the list. There's 4 of them. I don't have them in front of me. I can get them quickly, but I don't need to read them. We not hire any of those, but that the mayor in this case just be lumped in with the representation by our city attorney's staff to do what we need to do to go through this process. If that makes sense, I might need some help from the city attorney to help clarify that, but I think I know what I'm saying. I think I'm right.
So if I may address that and at the same time answer, I think the question that was posed by Councilmember Ibarra. First of all, yes, as I started to say, the city's duty to defend an employee or an elected official is not always absolute. There are nuances to that. I think I described some of those for you. Councilmember Ibarra referenced section 815.3, but what this section actually says, it says that notwithstanding any other provision a public entity is not liable to a plaintiff or have a duty to represent. But it says, notwithstanding, unless the elected official and the public entity are named as co-defendants in the same action, the claim that was filed against the city is a claim against the city and Mr. Valdivia in that claim. So this 815.3 would only apply when someone is only suing the individual council member and does not bring the city into that claim as well. And so you are, Council Member Charette, explaining your point correctly, which is that the city does have a duty to defend unless the conditions are present that I referenced to you. So I acknowledge that there are some of those conditions, and that whether the individual receives their own legal counsel is entirely up to the discretion of the city council. And that's why we brought this to you in open session. As you may recall, we discussed the legal issues and potential liability in closed session, but I made it absolutely clear to you that we could not address a contractual issue in closed session. It had to come before the public in a transparent manner.
And we haven't received the lawsuit, correct, Mr. Attorney? An official lawsuit?
We have received the claim. My understanding is that the city has processed that claim in accordance with its standard procedures.
Okay, why haven't we seen it then? If we've seen the allegations, we've heard of the allegations. However, I have not seen anything in writing besides their claims. I'm trying to see if there's a lawsuit or if we can wait until the lawsuits come out.
No,
you don't have to address that.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, council member.
Well, I was just going to say that we're being sued, okay, and we're going to all be part of, as a collective body being sued for some allegations made against the mayor. And all I'm suggesting is that, listen, I'm not defending him or his actions or whatever. I'm not making a judgment on that. I'm simply saying that I'm not supporting hiring a special attorney to represent him individually. He gets lumped in with all the rest of us in this action. They're suing the city and he gets lumped in. We don't give him special dispensation or pay a higher rate or anything else. We don't hire an outside attorney. We leave it up to our city attorney to defend the city in this case. And until further notice or until something further happens, I think that's the way we go. And we just, my recommendation is that we don't approve any of these four and that we just simply tell the city attorney to defend us in this particular action. Is that, Sonia, is that kind of accurate?
Yes, but yes, absolutely. The substance is accurate. I just want to make one clarification that the city of San Bernardino has already engaged separate legal counsel, a law firm of Liebert Cassidy, to represent the city, at least in this matter with respect to the investigations and of the city's general defense, that we use them as special counsel. So I do want to make it clear that I personally and Best and Krieger would never move forward to represent the mayor nor any individual council member that was named personally under these conditions. We would perceive that as a conflict of interest and would not do it. That is the reason we are not involved in the investigation.
Right. So you're doing that the same as you would do it for me personally. If I was in some sort of issue, but not, you wouldn't get me a special $400 an hour attorney. We're just going to do it all lumped together as one body, one group, until the allegations change or until the courts change, right?
It's the same way that we do that in all cases.
Right.
We would handle this case in the same way we handle all cases where individuals at the city are named in those claims and lawsuits.
Until the point comes that we need to say, sorry, we can't defend you anymore. You're on your own. Correct?
Until a point comes through that representation, whoever's chosen to represent the city in that matter, if there's evidence or information that comes to their attention, which would create an actual conflict of interest, or which would demonstrate that the employee acted outside the scope, then that would be immediately reported to the city council and under the rules of professional conduct. that lawyer would not continue to represent the individual.
Right. And so again, I'm not supporting the idea that we're going to pay special counsel for Mayor Valdivia at the rate of 50 or not to exceed $50,000 or up to 50,000. I'm not suggesting that. I'm just suggesting that we don't hire any special. We got Liebert. We use them. They defend us as a body, as a city, and until such time as that changes, and that would be recommendation by the attorney to say we need to part ways. Correct? Is that in layman's terms?
Correct. Yes, we would. As you know, the city council has liability. We get lots of lawsuits and claims filed against the city all the time. You have a stable of law firms who represent the city in different areas, and we would make those individuals available as we would to any of you. The reason, again, I just want to.
Okay, I'm suggesting that we don't hire anybody special. We just go forward with this and let it play itself.
I moved to table this item. I just moved to table it. If it's already under the authority of the city attorney, why are we even considering it? Let's just table it.
I can support that.
Ms. City
Move to table.
It's not a moving to table is not a debatable action, so we would immediately have to take a vote. So let's have the city clerk do a roll call.
Mayor Pro Tem.
If this vote fails, then you'll have the opportunity, because this is a non-debatable action. We do have to take a roll call. City clerk, if you may call the vote.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Sanchez.
Yes.
Councilmember Ibarra.
Point of clarification, can you just summarize what we're voting on right now?
Table.
To table it? Yes, but I do have some more comments to make.
You can't.
Yeah.
Not on a.
Our motion to table.
Councilmember Nickel made a motion to table the item, and it was seconded by Councilmember Charette. And so we're taking a vote as to whether the council wants to table the item or not. Okay.
I'll vote no. I'll vote no. We need to vote on this.
Councilmember Figueroa.
I'm in agreement with Councilmember Ibarra. No.
Councilmember Charette.
Yes.
Councilmember Nickel.
Yes.
Councilmember Richard.
No.
And Councilmember Mulvihill.
This is a tough one because I really, of course, I can't give any statements on the tabling, but I think we really need to discuss this a little bit more. So I'm going to say no.
Okay, the item does not pass.
That was the item to table. It did not pass.
All right, so let's continue debate. I know Councilmember Ibarra had a comment to make, or she wanted some questions answered. Go ahead, Councilmember.
Yeah, I just wanted to also reference, and it's in the packet also, Ms. City Attorney. So thank you. Government Code Section 995. It says a public entity may refuse to provide for the defense of a civil action or proceeding brought against an employee or former employee if the public entity determines any of the following: the act or omission was not within the scope of his or her employment, which is still left to, we're still waiting on the investigation results. Point number 2, he or she acted or failed to act because of actual fraud, corruption, or actual malice. Point 3, the defense of the action or proceeding by the public entity would create a special conflict of interest between the public entity and the employee or former employee. For the purpose of this section, specific conflict of interest means a conflict of interest or an adverse or pecuniary interest specified by statute or by a rule or regulation. Further on, it does say, once again, and I'll let you guys know, if an actual or specific conflict of interest becomes apparent subsequent to the 20-day period following the employee's written request for defense, has it been 20 days? It has not. Nothing herein shall prevent the public entity from refusing to provide further defense to the employee. So I personally, based on the allegations that have come out, without us having the results of the investigation, which is beyond the 45 days, we need to be very careful of what we're going to be voting on right now. And this is why I'm going to vote no. If we have the opportunity to deny the legal representation, especially when it's only been one of us that has been named in a lot of these allegations. I don't think that should be something that the city should be paying for it. That's where I'll be standing. I just wanted to point out further on section, Government Code section 995. Thank you. That's all. I yield the floor.
Okay. Other council members? Is that it?
I'll have a quick, just a quick question. Well, not, I don't know if it'll be quick or not, but
Go
Sonia,
for it.
again, so I'm kind of almost there alongside Councilmember Charette in agreeing with his point of view. And now that you've mentioned a little bit more information due to the conflict of interest, is that the reason why then the city attorney's office is, BBK is not able to represent?
Yes, but yes, we, from the very beginning, from the day that these claims were brought forward, we made it very clear that we would not be involved in handling them or handling the investigation. But this is a case where the mayor made this request. You may recall that we did not bring this forward. We wouldn't have a need to bring this forward at this time. What we would normally do in a normal circumstances is if the lawsuit's actually filed and we found that we had a conflict, we would come, if we found that he needed special representation, we would come to the city council. But this was initiated by a written request from the mayor.
Okay, well then I would make the motion to go with the lowest rate then, not the one that was requested, and that would be the Patrick Bobko one, the lowest rated one.
No rates. No
Council
rates.
member Movahill, you've had your hand up for a second here. Let's let him speak.
Yeah, I'd like to reconsider my vote on the last motion.
To table?
Table, yes.
I'll move to table the item.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second on that?
Yes.
All right, so it looks like we have a motion to table and a second. So let's go ahead and call roll call on that. If you could,
I'm sorry,
City Clerk.
who seconded the motion to table?
Well, I seconded this time. I think it was Charette first.
I second the motion to table. I think I made the motion to table.
Correct.
And I seconded. Jim wants to reconsider it.
Yeah.
No, this is a new motion.
We'll do it again. We'll do it again. New reconsideration vote.
Yes, I see that this is actually just a new motion on the table made by Councilmember Nickel with a second by Charette to table.
All right,
I think that's, well, okay. I think that's wrong. I think Jim really wants to reconsider his last vote.
That's what I'm there for.
He gets to he gets to vote on it again anyway.
Let's just vote on it again. It makes it easier. Otherwise, we got to take 2 votes.
I'm good.
All right.
All right, so let's call the question, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Sanchez.
Yes.
Councilmember Ibarra.
No.
Councilmember Figueroa.
No.
Councilmember Charette.
Yes.
Councilmember Nickel.
Yes.
Councilmember Richard.
No.
Councilmember Mulvihill.
Yes.
All right, the motion
to table passes.
Okay, all right. Moving on. Item number 7. Mayor, you want to come back or should I take over? Let's go item number 7. If
along with the number with measure 6, with the item 6, I'd like to ask a question to the city attorney.
Go ahead.
The city attorney, who is charging the city?
I'm having difficulty hearing you. Can you repeat that question?
Okay. Who specifically is bringing charges against the city for sexual harassment and?
Can we talk about this after that was voted on?
No, the item's been tabled.
We're done with that item, Jim.
Yes.
Well, I've got an issue. I have an issue. I have before me the mayor's 460 form.
Jim, you can't.
Item has been tabled.
Okay.
Mayor Pro Tem, you need to go to the next item.
All right.
I answer those questions, Mr. Mulvihill. If you
Mr. Mulvihill, just send a couple emails out, make a call to the city attorney tomorrow, get your questions answered. Is that okay?
So
I'll take that as yes.
So you can't answer that, Sonia?
Yeah, because the item's been tabled, the rules say that there's.
Okay, I understand.
All right, let's move on to item number 7. Staff, would you like to give us your report?
Yes. Honorable Mayor and City Council members, on March 18th, you held the first public hearing for a review of the draft consolidated plan and the associated documents with that plan. There were no changes to the draft document, and there were no comments from the public or from the council and the mayor. Before you tonight is the draft 2020-2025 consolidated plan, the analysis of impediments to fair housing, and the fiscal year 2020-2021 annual action plan. As a set of documents, they comprise the 5-year consolidated plan. The plan is a policy document that assesses the city's needs relative to housing and community development, and establishes priorities for the use of CDBG, home, and ESG funds. In preparation for the plan, the city and its consultant conducted a series of community meetings and community engagement events, and also a community-wide survey to gather input on the policies and goals that residents believe are the most important for the use of the city's federal funds. Upon conclusion of the public hearing and adoption of the consolidated plan, if that's what occurs tonight, the city must submit the plan to HUD by May 15th, 2020. And once that plan is approved by HUD, that will be our planning document moving forward for the next 5 years on what priorities and goals the city will pursue. If you have any questions, I can answer them at this time.
All right, I'd like to open it up. Council members, questions? Anyone? No questions?
Move to approve.
Move for approval.
All right, we have let's say Fred made the motion. Councilmember Richard made the second. Shall we, any other discussion? All right, let's take a vote. City Clerk, if you can, if you may.
Mayor Pro Tem Sanchez?
Yes.
Just really quick, a point of order. This is the public hearing, correct?
Yes.
Sorry, there are no public comments for the public hearing, but Mayor Pro Tem, if you want to officially open up the public hearing.
And then close it.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I'm opening up this public hearing at 10. Shall we say 10:30 p.m. For the draft of the fiscal year 2025 consolidated plan analysis of implementation for fair housing and draft fiscal year 2020-21 annual action plan associated with the community development block grant, home investment partnership, and emergency solutions grant program.
Okay. And like I said just a minute ago, there have not been any comments received for this item.
So do we close? So we close public comment. Shall we take a vote?
Close public hearing.
Sorry, close public hearing.
Yes.
All right. Public hearing is closed at 10:33.
Okay, so the motion was made. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
Your vote is yes?
Yes.
Okay, Councilmember Ibarra?
Yes.
Councilmember Figueroa?
Yes.
Okay, Councilmember Charette?
Yes.
Councilmember Nickel?
Yes.
Councilmember Richard?
Yes.
And Councilmember Mobejo?
Yes.
Okay, the item passes 7-0.
All right. What else did I need to do? Did I need to do anything else for this public hearing? No?
Nope, the vote was taken.
All right. All right. So let's move on to the consent calendar. So the consent calendar, any, let's pull the council members. Any items to pull?
Mayor Pro Tem,
Yes.
if I may.
Yes.
Since you got some changes to item number 15, I wanted to make sure that you received those.
Were those emailed to us? I believe they were, right?
That's correct.
All right. Yes, I received those. Did all the other council members receive those?
Yep.
All right. So if there are no items to pull, shall we take a vote?
Move approval.
Second.
I'll be abstaining on item 10. We submitted a letter to the Registrar of Voters regarding the eligibility of the candidate, never received a response.
Okay.
Mayor Pro
Yes,
Tem?
Councilmember Barr, yes.
I just wanted to pull item 19, which is the last item on the agenda.
Animal shelter mold abatement. All right, move the balance. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. City Clerk, if you may call the question, please.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem Sanchez,
Yes.
Councilmember Ibarra,
Yes.
Councilmember Figueroa,
Yes.
Councilmember Charette,
Yes.
Councilmember Nickel,
Abstaining on 10, yes on the balance.
Councilmember Richard,
Yes.
Councilmember Mulvihill.
Yes.
All right.
Consent passes.
Good. All right. So item number 19 pulled by Councilmember Barra. Councilmember?
Yes, I need our city staff, maybe Paul can clarify, just my only question I have. I need to find out the actual official balance left on the animal shelter repair fund. I'm reading here 68,000. That doesn't sound accurate to me, but I wanted him to speak more about how this balance, where that number's coming from, because I remember having over 600,000 available, and I think we approved in December 314,000 based on page 737. So I need a clarification on the amount left for the animal shelter repair fund.
Councilwoman Ibarra, I believe that's the amount that's remaining in the project, not the fund balance, but I'm going to have to double check that.
Okay, if it is, then I'm okay with it. Then I just wanted that clarification because, like I said, it was 314 that was approved in December for the repairs, and we had over 600 in that fund, and 68,000 kind of threw me off. Okay, thank you for clarifying. I'll move to approve.
All right. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. Let's call the question. City Clerk, if you may.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem Sanchez,
Yes.
Councilmember Ibarra,
Yes.
Councilmember Figueroa,
Yes.
Councilmember Charette,
Yes.
Councilmember Nickel,
Yes.
Councilmember Richard,
Yes.
and Councilmember Mulvihill.
Yes.
Okay, the item passes 7-0.
All right. Items to be referred to committee or council members. Council member, yes, go ahead, Henry.
Yeah, just I know we were supposed to get an item on the cannabis. I know we've got a lot going on with COVID and everything else, but city manager, when do we anticipate that item coming back?
I'll be honest with you, we really haven't started working on it yet because we also need to work on the regulatory part. I would say after the budget, probably.
And Miss City Manager, if I may, and not in any way to since the council member brought this up, I would like to ask perhaps that we put this back on closed session for your next meeting on May 6th, only because, and I hate to do this, I had not yet informed the city manager that we did have some new developments in some of the litigation that I'd like to discuss with the council. So if that would be okay.
My concern is the longer we wait, the more potential liability we incur on this.
Yes, and that's why I'd like to go back into closed session and give you an update on what I think you'll need to do moving forward.
Thank
Sure,
you.
we'll put that on the next agenda. Thank you.
Good. Councilmember Mulvihill.
Yes, I wanted to ask the city attorney the question I had before. This has nothing to do with representation of Valdivia, it has something to do with the city.
Council members, since this is an item to refer things to the agenda, to refer things to committee or to the city manager, I don't know whether it'd be appropriate to have a conversation on that.
I will defer to the city attorney's legal opinion on this.
I just want to make sure that we're just not violating.
Who are the individuals? That's my question.
I think it's a fair question. Can we do that?
Yeah, who is it?
Who is what?
Who is charging us? I'm not talking to us as a city.
I am so sorry, Councilmember. I am having a very hard time hearing you. Can someone translate?
He wants to know who's suing us, who the people are that's suing the city.
In relation to cannabis?
No. It's in relation to John Valdivia.
I am so sorry. Okay. I'm sorry. We're going back to that issue. Okay. The city has received 3 different tort claims that I'm aware of. And I don't know if we still have our HR director on the line, but it is the 2 women that I think have been mentioned before in different media. And then we did receive a 3rd claim.
Okay, so Cervantes and Myrna. I was looking at Mr. Valdivia's 460 form, and he paid Ms. Cervantes in the last 6 months $125 as a postage delivery messenger service. And for Ms. Myrna Cisneros, he paid her $350 as a campaign consultant and $125 as a postage delivery messenger service. So he was paying these people on his own, on their own time. In other words, maybe he committed these actions, possibly, not on the city's dime, on the city's time. And by the way, if Don Smith, by the way, in the last 6 months of last year, he paid $1,900 to Don Smith as a campaign consultant and $50 as that postage delivery and messenger service. So what I'm asking for,
I really do apologize, Councilmember Mulvihill, but I do feel that we may potentially be in violation of the Brown Act. City Attorney, may you elucidate on this, discussing this item?
I would have to say I'm appreciative if there's information that needs to be shared with our city staff or with the attorneys that are representing the city on these matters. It looks to me like that those may be employment matters, and I would say that we need to get that information. But in terms of the agenda, this is the place on the agenda and the time for you to refer matters to committee or to ask the city manager to bring agenda items to you.
Exactly.
In this case,
and
Councilmember Mulvihill. Okay, go ahead.
And that's the point. This information is the fact that these people were being paid in addition to their work with the city. So the point is that we should be investigating whether, in fact, which piece of the pie are we cutting? That's all I want to know.
Well, I think, I think if you would like to frame that in a question that the council can then discuss at a future council meeting, I'd be willing to entertain that. Councilmember Mulvihill, do you have a proposal that the council can consider?
What I just said. The fact is that the mayor was paying these people independently. So did the actions that they're charging the city, did it take place on company time or was it on Valdivia time?
So, Councilmember Mulvihill, I would just recommend that we have that conversation with our city manager, perhaps our HR. That information may be essential to the city's defense of its case and should be referred to special counsel to investigate and look into.
And I think it's important to look at that. I was just thinking that.
Get offline.
Pardon me. But the point is that this is the time that we're going to bring things up, and so I think this needs to be taken. Presumably the investigator is going to be coming across this, hopefully, and I think it needs to be taken a look at. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Any other council members have anything? Councilmember Ibarra.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Yes, I do have two items. The first one I'd like to bring back. I'd like for us to get an actual report of the balance remaining for the animal shelter repair funds, which was one of the outstanding questions on tonight's meeting. Just a brief report. And also if we can bring banning of fireworks, whether or not the city council wants to move forward with banning those fireworks citywide. That's all I have for right now. Oh, the last thing, I have mentioned it during item number 1 today. I've been doing some research and I was referred to the Victor Valley's Homelessness Solutions Task Force. Ms. City Manager, do we currently have something like that in our city? I know I sent you information via email, but I don't know if you had a chance to take a look into it.
City Manager, if before you answer that, right now is the time to refer things to a committee or
Correct.
to ask for a vote to so the council can entertain adding this to the agenda. So, I mean, unless you're framing the question that way, we can ask questions and get information offline. Do you have a proposal?
Sure, we can talk to you about that offline. We'd be happy to.
Okay, because I hadn't received a response from the email I sent, so I thought I'd ask publicly to see if you had enough time. But I think our city should probably start talking about, you know, doing an actual solution to the homeless situation in our city. There's more encampments popping up, not only in the 2nd Ward. I've seen them all over the city, random locations in front of businesses, vacant property, alleys, you name it. And we are not doing, it doesn't feel like we are doing anything for the homeless population. I did have a positive outcome recently with our city staff. We were able to shelter one of the homeless, but with the COVID going on right now, like I've mentioned, a lot of our shelters are very limited on how much space they can offer. I know Salvation Army, I was told that they're only offering shelter for families. It's very urgent that we bring that to try to think of a strategic action plan on behalf of our city to solve our own homeless problem that we're having here, especially with COVID pandemic going on out there. Right now we're being portrayed as NIMBYs publicly, and that is not the case. I want the public to know that that is not the case for us. It's just, unfortunately, we have way too many homeless in our city that we cannot shelter at all. And all we need to find out what is our plan, how we're tackling it, if it's working or if it's not. How can we change? If we can look at the Victor Valley's Homelessness Solutions Task Force as an example, the ICH.
Okay, council member, if you would like to frame that in a question, either frame that in a question or can we move on?
You want me to frame it in a question now?
Well, no. I mean, if you would like to add this to the agenda, then you can
Yes,
please propose that to the council. Can you make the proposal, please?
Yes, I would like to have I would like our city staff to come back with a strategic action plan on tackling the homeless situation in our city.
City Manager, would you like a vote on that, or would you like to take direction?
Point of order, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, go ahead, council member.
I think this is a point in time where we're referring things to committees. We're not giving direction to staff to do something. Staff works for a majority of the council, not for one person. And though I don't disagree with some of Council Member Ibarra's concerns with the homeless issue, that's a major issue that we need to be looking at collectively. And I don't think we're given staff direction to take that on at the present time. I don't really support that.
Okay, let's go ahead and take a vote on that. Should we go ahead and take a vote on that?
If I may, Mayor Pro Tem, we do have a homeless strategy. We could certainly bring you back a report on what we are currently doing with the HUD funds that we have. Maybe that would be a good starting point to start a whole new program right now in this middle of this pandemic with all we have going on that we couldn't bring you back right away. We can certainly bring you back what we're already doing. If that would be helpful.
Let's go ahead and do that. Councilmember Barr, would that be fine with you?
That'll be fine with me, even though we already had the housing summit earlier, and from the experience that I had, I didn't have much luck with the shelters we had locally. So that's why I would hope that we start being more proactive and tackle this problem fast before it gets out of hand.
Okay, Councilmember, you had two other items. You had two other items you wanted to add: the shelter as well as the.
Yeah, and the shelter should be an easy, short report on just the balance remaining for the animal shelter repair funds. And then the other one is taking a vote on banning fireworks citywide.
Are you fine with taking both of those on, City Manager, or would you like us to take a vote on that?
Banning fireworks citywide is a pretty big deal. I'd like a vote on that if you want us
Okay.
to.
Yes.
Um,
I'm not sure. Do we need
And
a
you're
second on
voting,
that?
make sure that you're voting not on the issue to ban them, but whether you'd like to refer that to a committee. Is there a committee in
Committee or the agenda?
They're not meeting right now due to the COVID pandemic. I think this would be under the Public Safety Committee.
If it's
Commissioners.
not going to go directly to a committee, then my recommendation is that you're only voting on whether you want the city manager with all the other things that she has to prioritize this higher than what she's already got. That's what you're voting on.
Correct. And July is a couple months away. If we can start
I'm
talking.
We're not going to get a ban on fireworks.
No, we're not going to.
We're not voting on banning the fireworks right now. We're voting on getting it on the agenda.
Yes, I believe that's right. Shall we take a vote on that?
That's fine, but I just want you to know it's not possible to get that done before this 4th of July. That's something we could work on for the following year.
Yes. All right, City Clerk, if you could take the vote on that.
So is there a second on that item? No.
Fails for a lack of a second.
All right.
So nobody wants to talk about banning the fireworks. Okay.
Right now, I just as a council member, I want to make sure that we're not overwhelming the staff at this point. There's a lot.
No,
of
and
things.
that's why she said it would happen after July 4th. That was
Right.
clarification,
Well,
and even then, you guys were still refused to do a second on it. That's okay. We'll tell that to our taxpaying citizens who will have to deal with this year after year. And I have been requesting this since last year, and as I recall. And I'm always being told this cannot happen before 4th of July. Every single time. It's been 2 years already. And those are the answers we're getting. And I want the taxpayers to know that. And us as council members, we're not acting fast enough for them.
Okay.
Thank
Any other council members to anything you would like to refer to committee or to a council meeting? Anything else? All right. Then in that case, we will close this council meeting. Let us close. If we can take a moment of silence. For all the individuals affected by this awful illness that's spreading throughout the world, just take 10 seconds to bow our heads and just think about what's going on and hope for those who are suffering from this. All right. Well, I appreciate everyone. We will adjourn this meeting to the next council meeting. City Clerk, when is our next council meeting?
The next regularly scheduled council meeting is on May 6th.
Okay, there you have it. Well, everyone have a good night and stay safe.